Chapter 53. However, something unexpected happened. As soon as the white-haired old man finished his sentence, Jiang Chen felt that something was amiss. He panicked and his feet suddenly moved. At this moment, Jiang Chen stopped pretending. Like a ray of light, he rushed to the top of the stairs in an instant. What the F***ck? What's going on? At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. They did not expect that someone who looked like he was struggling would suddenly rush to the 99th step. Moreover, everyone looked at Jiang Chen. His face was not red, and his heart was not beating fast. Nothing was wrong. Even the layer of sweat on his forehead had disappeared. This guy, why does he look so familiar? Jiang Lu looked at Jiang Chen thoughtfully. As for the white-haired old man, he was a little confused. After looking at Jiang Chen for a while, he turned around and continued moving forward without saying anything. After walking past the stairs, it was the outer court of the Northern Ming courtyard. The last round of the recruitment assessment was held here. After passing the assessment, one could become an outer court disciple of the Northern Ming courtyard. Otherwise, one would be eliminated. You can make an exception and enter the inner court directly, the white-haired old man said to Bai Fengyu. With your cultivation, the following assessment is nothing to you. No. Bai Fengyu shook her head and blinked her beautiful eyes. There was a trace of doubt in her eyes. Since entering the mountain gate, Bai Fengyu had been looking for Jiang Chen. She firmly believed that with Jiang Chen's strength, he would definitely pass the assessment. However, until now, she did not even see Jiang Chen's shadow. Bai Fengyu began to suspect. Could it be that Tong Sang lied to her and Jiang Chen did not come to the Northern Ming courtyard at all? I'm here to look for someone. If he's not here, I won't enter the Northern Ming courtyard, Bai Fengyu said. As soon as she said that, the white-haired old man immediately glared and shouted. What do you think the Northern Ming courtyard is? Are you here to behave atrociously? Behave atrociously? So what? Bai Fengyu's eyes narrowed as he said. Not to mention a mere solitary North City, even if it's the godless continent, not many people would dare to say anything if I want to behave atrociously. What? This woman has a great background? Everyone was stunned as they tried to guess Bai Fengyu's identity. Jiang Chen, keep a low profile, Jiang Lu muttered. Jiang Chen doesn't like people who are too high profile. Oh. Bai Fengyu nodded. Even though she was the sole successor of White Emperor City and had limitless glory outside, in front of Jiang Chen, she really didn't have any temper. Even if Jiang Chen wasn't by her side, as long as she mentioned Jiang Chen's name, Bai Fengyu would have a strange feeling in her heart. It was as if she should really listen to Jiang Chen. But Master isn't here, Bai Fengyu said with a frown. Maybe he's by your side, Jiang Lu said meaningfully as he blinked his small eyes. There was a trace of a smile at the corner of his mouth, then he raised his eyebrows at Jiang Chen, who was in disguise. This little fatty. Jiang Chen was speechless. He really didn't expect that Jiang Lu would see through his identity. However, on second thought, it was also reasonable. After all, Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu grew up together. The feelings between the two would not change because of the change in appearance. Others might not be able to detect Jiang Chen's abnormality, but Jiang Lu had already detected it. Especially Jiang Chen's mouth, there was always a trace of a wanton smile. This made Jiang Lu even more certain that this stranger in front of him was definitely Jiang Chen. White Emperor City of Tseng Mountain Snow Sea, Bai Fengyu. Are you satisfied now? At this moment, Bai Fengyu was also afraid of causing trouble and couldn't help but secretly transmit her voice to the white-haired old man, explaining her identity. The only successor of White Emperor City. The white-haired old man was shocked. After silently looking at Bai Fengyu, he didn't say anything else. Then, after walking for a while, the group finally arrived at the outer court of the Northern Ming court. The outer court was already filled with a group of Northern Ming court disciples. These people were all here to see their future junior brothers and sisters. Wow! That girl's looks are too much! How can she have such an appearance? It's not too much to say that she's devastatingly beautiful. When the group of people saw Bai Fingyu, they exclaimed in surprise. There were even people who shouted the word goddess. Fingyu, this girl, is really not bad looking, Jiang Chen thought to himself. He was even more proud in his heart. Such a beautiful girl is my disciple. 17 people, excluding Bai Fingyu, the remaining 16 people will fight in pairs to determine the top 10. The white-haired old man said. The rest will be eliminated. When these words came out, Yi Changfeng and the rest were stunned. They were even more surprised. Although the Northern Ming Court's assessment was also very strict, it had never been this strict. Last year, the Northern Ming Court recruited more than 100 new disciples. What's the situation this year? Only 10? Elder Lu, what's the situation this year? Only 10 disciples? Silent Void Mia asked. It's a little special this year, only 10. The white-haired old man, Elder Lu, glanced at the mountain behind the Northern Ming Court and said, The dean himself gave the order, and even the 4 directions divine houses gave the order. Is it related to the inheritance of the spiritual one? The drunkard, the young master of the drunkard mountain village, asked. When he spoke, there was a whiff of alcohol. Yes, I'm sure you all know that not long ago, the spiritual one gave a divine decree to pass down his inheritance to his descendants. Elder Lu nodded. After that, Elder Lu seemed to be unwilling to say more. He waved his hand and said, Pick your own opponent. In Elder Lu's eyes, the result of the last assessment was already very clear. People like young Master Luo, Yi Changfeng, Silent Void Mie, the drunkard, and the Crimson Eye would definitely pass. The others were just there to serve as a foil. Pick any one of them, and you can enter the Northern Ming Court after the battle. Okay. Young Master Luo and the others were well aware that it was impossible to pick someone with similar strength. If they lost, they would be eliminated. At that time, being eliminated was a small matter, but losing face was a big deal. Next, young Master Luo and the others picked their opponents, and without exception, all of them won. However, young Master Luo and the others picked their opponents quickly, and the weakest ones were all picked. Naturally, the remaining ones were those who looked not too weak, but not too strong. Among them, Jiang Qin and Jiang Lu were included. Little fatty, you're up. At this moment, the Crimson Eye from the Thousand Fantasy sect took a step forward, pointed at Jiang Lu, and said, Hurry up, the sooner we finish, the sooner we can get this over with. Oh, okay. Jiang Lu looked very honest. After nodding his head, he walked over. Then, the two of them exploded with genuine qi. An array of bloody light appeared in the eyes of the Crimson Eye. Boom! However, without waiting for the Crimson Eye to make a move, Jiang Lu rushed to the front of the Crimson Eye like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. Then, with a loud explosion, the crowd saw that the Crimson Eye did not even have time to use his most powerful eye technique before he was punched to the ground by Jiang Lu, and fainted. Chapter 54. The Crimson Eye from the Thousand Fantasy sect was very famous among the younger generation. He was even ranked in the top 80 of the Green Cloud Roll. The Green Cloud Roll was the ranking of the younger generation on the godless continent. Only those who were under 20 years old and below the Tao state were qualified to enter the Green Cloud Roll. The Crimson Eye was on the Green Cloud Roll. However, no one expected the Crimson Eye to be knocked down by Jiang Lu with one punch. Instant kill. No way! What's wrong with this little fatty? He didn't even use any martial arts techniques, and he finished it with one punch? His physical body is too strong! Everyone was shocked. Even young Master Luo, Yi Changfeng, and Silent Void Mia were amazed. Jiang Lu gave a simple and honest smile, looking very embarrassed. He scratched his head, looked at Elder Lu and asked, Am I qualified? Elder Lu was stunned for a long time before he came back to his senses and nodded. You passed. Then, Jiang Lu smiled and stood beside Bai Fingyu. He quietly poked Bai Fingyu's arm. What are you doing? Bai Fingyu was confused. Let's watch Jiang Chen's performance later, Jiang Lu said softly. Master? Is he really here? Bai Fingyu frowned. She looked around but didn't see Jiang Chen. You then. At this moment, the drunkard walked out confidently and randomly picked a person. However, the person he picked happened to be Jiangqin. The drunkard is in the middle level of the thought state. He's about to enter the upper level of the thought state. He'll definitely win this round, young Master Luo said. He recognized the drunkard's strength. This guy will be miserable. Jiang Lu had a strange expression. He could even imagine the drunkard's ending. Little fatty, you have a good eye. That guy who claims to be the successor of the heavenly temple will definitely be beaten down by the drunkard. Young Master Luo laughed. Hearing this, Jiangli gave a simple and honest smile and did not explain. He couldn't tell young Master Luo that the person he said would be miserable wasn't Jiangqin, but the drunkard. Let's begin, Elder Lu said softly, then closed his eyes. After all, in his eyes, Jiang Lu's victory over the blood-eyed one was already a surprise. And in a test, it was impossible for an accident to occur twice. He didn't need to watch to know that the drunkard would win the fight. Bang! However, in the next second, everyone only saw a blur before their eyes, as if a black and white light flashed past. With a muffled sound, the drunkard was sent flying. What? Oh my God! What did you guys just see? Cries of surprise rang out one after another. None of the people present clearly saw what had just happened. Only Jianglu had a smile on his face, as if he had already expected this result. Heavenly dance of brightness and darkness, hee, it really is Jiangqin. Jiangqin thought. This was not the first time he had seen bright and dark sky dance. At this moment, he was even more certain that the person in front of him was Jiangqin. Bai Fingyu blinked her beautiful eyes. When she saw the black and white light, she also reacted. This is too much. You obviously saw me, but you didn't even come over to greet me. Bai Fingyu's eyes flashed with a trace of hidden bitterness, and she glared at Jiangqin fiercely. Jiangqin pretended that he didn't know anything. He looked at Elder Lu with a smile and asked, Is it okay? Pass. Elder Lu nodded blankly. 2 consecutive accidents had happened today, and he was a little numb. On the side, young Master Luo's face was gloomy and ugly. He stared at Jiangqin, and suddenly felt some pressure in his heart. It was only because even he hadn't seen Jiangqin's attack clearly. If I fight with him, I have almost no chance of winning. Young Master Luo frowned, and a trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes. The following battles were not exciting, and each of them fought until the top 10 were determined. However, Elder Lu seemed to be giving face to the Thousand Fantasy Sect and Drunken Wine Villa, and also cherishing talents. He made an exception and allowed the drunkard and the blood-eyed one to enter the Northern Ming Hall as outer yard disciples. At this point, the entrance examination of the Northern Ming Hall was over. Subsequently, Elder Lu brought them to the dormitory of the new students. After explaining the rules of the Northern Ming Hall, he left. As for Bai Fingyu, she was brought to the inner yard and directly became an inner yard disciple. What are the 2 of you doing here? At this moment, in a small wooden house, Jiangqin and Jianglu were assigned to stay together for a period of time. Who will teach us when you're not here? Jianglu muttered. It's Bai Fingyu's idea, right? Jiangqin stared and said unhappily. Looking at Jianglu, he knew that he didn't have the guts to leave the Qianzuan sect without permission. Bai Fingyu said that she wants to be your disciple. Wherever you go, she will go. Jianglu said weakly. She wants to look for you. I was afraid that she would encounter danger on the way, so I followed her. Hearing this, Jiangqin was speechless. He rolled his eyes and said, Okay, since we're here, we'll cultivate here for a period of time. When I get the thing, we'll leave. Bang! Just as he finished speaking, a loud explosion suddenly sounded. Then, the door of the small wooden house Jiangqin was in was kicked open. Smoke and dust flew everywhere, and there were even wood shavings flying towards Jiangqin's face. What's going on? Jiangqin frowned and stood in the same place, not moving at all. In front of him, Jianglu was like a boulder, standing straight there. The smoke and wood shavings hit his body, making muffled sounds. Newcomer? Outside the small wooden house, A young man in brocade clothes and holding a long rod stood there with a frivolous expression. Behind him, there were 5 or 6 outer yard disciples. Newcomer. Jiang Chen nodded and said, "Is there a problem?" "Of course there's a problem." The young man with the long rod smiled and stretched out his hand. "According to the rules, it's time for a newcomer to pay a protection fee." "Ah? Protection fee?" Jiang Chen was dumbfounded. He looked at Jianglu and asked, "What does he mean?" "He wants us to pay," Jianglu said. As soon as these words came out, Jiang Chen's face suddenly darkened. After his rebirth, Jiang Chen didn't lack anything except money. Jiang Chen, who was about to be born, loved money as much as his life. Want him to pay? Wasn't this touching Jiang Chen's bottom line? "Jianglu," Jiang Chen whispered, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, "Tell them what the consequences of collecting protection fees from me are." "You mean to beat them up?" Jianglu asked. When he saw Jiang Chen's cold look, he immediately shut up. Boom! The next moment, Jianglu rushed out, his whole body shining with golden light. When he punched, the fist turned into a strong wind, and it was like a bright sun. Accompanied by a loud explosion, the young man with the long rod flew out on the spot, spilling blood along the way. Chapter 55. The Archean sacred body was invincible. Even Jiang Chen would not have dared to compete with the Archean sacred body in terms of physical strength before he had condensed 36 drops of blood essence. Now, under Jianglu's honest appearance was a body as hard as a boulder. Even a cultivator at the upper level of the thought state would find it difficult to block his punch. "Are you trying to rebel?" At that moment, the young man with the long stick was covered in blood as he struggled to get up from the ground. However, there was no trace of fear in his eyes. "Who do you think you are?" Jiang Chen looked at him coldly and touched his infinite space ring. There were less than 1,000,000 top-grade spiritual stones in it. For a moment, Jiang Chen felt that he was still very poor. If he was so poor, why would he let someone collect the protection fee? Jiang Chen would not be happy about that. "Hey, new kid! I don't care how good you are outside, but since you're in the northern Ming courtyard, you have to follow the rules," the young man with the long stick said coldly. "If you don't pay the protection fee today, I will cripple you and kick you out of the northern Ming courtyard." Jiang Chen was amused when he heard that. How many people in this world would dare to talk to him like that? Cripple? Get out of the northern Ming courtyard. Ha! Jianglu, I don't know what it's like to be crippled. Show me, Jiang Chen said softly. Jianglu's face darkened when he heard that. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead and he said timidly, "Me? You want me to cripple myself?" Jiang Chen almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He sighed. Jianglu was too honest. "Why would I want you to cripple yourself? Aren't there people in front?" Jiang Chen said angrily. "Oh." Jianglu nodded and smiled shyly at the young man with the long stick. "Boss said to cripple all of you." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Jianglu took a step forward. He was like a human-shaped tyrannosaurus, his whole body exuding a reddish-gold radiance. His whole body looked like it was made of gold. When he punched, a golden wind appeared and his fist was as bright as the sun. "Don't!" The youth was frightened, but Jiang Chen only listened to Jianglu's words. It was impossible for him to stop this punch. Puff! In the next second, Jianglu's punch landed on the young man's body. With a dull thud, the young man's chest caved in completely. Even the spiritual meridians in his body were broken. His cultivation had been completely crippled. When the others saw this, they didn't dare to stay any longer. They turned around and ran. "Boss, should we chase?" Jianglu asked. "No need. Let them remember," Jiang Chen said. He glanced at the broken wooden door and said, "Go and get the door next door. We'll make do with it first." "Oh." Jianglu nodded obediently. Bang! Not long after, the wooden door of the small wooden house next door was pulled down by Jianglu and then fixed on the door of Jianglu's small wooden house. Are you kidding me? How can you bully people like this? Crimson Eye's voice came from the cabin next door. He was very angry. However, he was defeated by Jianglu previously. Crimson Eye was powerless in front of Jianglu, and could only grumble a little. Can the two of you take it easy? As freshmen, you have to follow the rules. Young Master Luo also lived next door and saw what happened. He walked out and frowned. Although Biminghuo won't punish you for crippling a senior, what about the rest of the seniors? If they come to take revenge, can you stop them? Mind your own business, Jiangchen said coldly. Don't think that just because you're from the 800 miles Black River, others will listen to you. Who do you think you are in my eyes? You! Young Master Luo shouted angrily. However, when he saw the golden Jianglu, he immediately shut up. This year's freshmen are a little arrogant. At this moment, a young man walked over from afar. He wore a white robe and held a folding fan in his hand. His face was delicate, but there was a hint of arrogance in his eyes. Not far away, there was a group of youths standing, but they did not come close. The fan, Bai! The kid with the long rod is Bai Yi's subordinate. Now that he's crippled, Bai Yi will definitely take revenge. What a pity for the two freshmen. They just entered the academy and they're going to be kicked out. There was a commotion all around. Some people even looked at Jiang Qin and Jianglu with sympathy. Young Master Luo and Crimson Eye seemed to be afraid of causing trouble and had already retreated to the cabin. Boss, cripple him? Jianglu did not care who the other party was. As long as Jiangchen said the word, he would dare to attack. However, this time, Jiangchen waved his hand and said, Come back. You're not his match. Jianglu heard this and his face darkened. He said with some resentment, We haven't fought yet. How am I not his match? Are you blind? He's lower origin realm, and you're only lower origin realm. There's an entire realm between you. Jiangchen rolled his eyes. Have you been overconfident lately? No. Jianglu hurriedly shook his head and obediently retreated into the cabin. Jiangchen walked out and stood in front of Bai Yi. His eyes narrowed. Are you here for revenge? Cripple your own cultivation and hands, and I can let you leave Northern Bright Hall alive. Bai Yi spoke softly, his expression aloof and arrogant. He opened the folding fan in his hand and a cold light flashed through it. Cripple your own cultivation and hands, and I can let you leave Northern Bright Hall alive. Jiangchen arched an eyebrow and added, Don't waste your breath. Either you nod and agree or fight. I think you're courting death. Bai Yi was furious. He'd been in Northern Bright Hall for so many years, but this was the first time he met such an arrogant freshman. Boom! In the next moment, Bai Yi made his move. A strong surge of true qi exploded from his body as he waved the folding fan in his hand. Vortexes of true qi swept towards Jiangchen. Dance of brightness and darkness. Jiangchen didn't dare be careless. After all, his opponent was an entire realm higher than him. Black and white light enveloped his body as he executed the dance of brightness and darkness. Black and white swords formed in his hands. Boom! Boom! Black and white light flashed. Under the dancing sword light, the vortexes of true qi were sliced into nothingness. 9 words of battle, swift as the wind. With a furious roar, a patch of green light appeared beneath Jiang Chen's feet, as if a fierce wind was gathering beneath his feet. He took a step forward, and as if he teleported, Jiang Chen appeared in front of Bai Yi before he could react. What? So fast. Normal people can't block this speed. They don't even have a chance to react. Exclamations rang out from all around. No one had expected a mere thought realm cultivator to have such strength and speed. Form! However, Bai Yi was really strong, and he reacted quickly. When Jiangchen showed up in front of him, the folding fan in his hand suddenly shattered, and it turned into many diamond-shaped fragments, floating in the air. Chapter 56. After Bai Yi said the word "not," rays of light bloomed from the diamond-shaped fragment. In an instant, Even without Jiangchen making a move, the rays of light condensed and turned into transparent glass, trapping Jiangchen. At this moment, Jiangchen's eyes narrowed and a trace of surprise flashed across his face. He did not expect that there would be a boundary master in such a small place. On the path of cultivation, there were all kinds of abilities. Some could refine pills, some could refine weapons, some could set up formations, and some could condense boundaries. In comparison, boundary masters were rarer than alchemists and weapon refiners. It was hard to find one in 10,000 people. That was because the requirements to become a boundary master were too harsh. One's mental strength had to be far beyond ordinary people. Moreover, one had to know how to set up boundaries. In his previous life, Jiangchen had fought with many enemies. Among them, the one that gave him the most headaches were boundary masters. Fortunately, after suffering a loss at the hands of boundary masters, Jiangchen also focused on cultivating and comprehending boundaries. Now, the barrier was nothing more than child's play to him. "Can you still move in my enchantment?" "Ha!" Bai laughed wildly and stood in the same place, not making a move. He was mocking Jiangchen, and he was sure that Jiangchen wouldn't be able to move. However, in the next moment, the true energy in Jiangchen's body burst out and condensed into runes beside him. The runes jumped and spun, turning into a sharp sword that hung above his head. Buzz! In an instant, the sharp sword exploded with boundless sword light, and there were even shadows of sharp swords appearing around it, like a sword formation. Under the wanton sword chi, Baiyi's boundary shattered in an instant. "Only you know how to use boundaries? How about this sword shadow boundary?" Jiangchen raised his eyebrows. When his voice fell, he took a step forward and the black and white sword in his hand swept across, directly sending Baiyi flying. "What are you doing?" At this moment, Baiyi exclaimed, and a trace of fear flashed across his eyes. This was because after Jiangchen sent him flying, he did not stop. Instead, he held a sharp sword and rushed in front of him. The sharp sword that flickered with black and white radiance was like a life-reaping sickle, piercing towards his dantian. If he were to be struck, even if he did not die, he would be severely injured, and his cultivation would be destroyed. "You told me to cripple my own cultivation and cripple my own hands. Now your words have been verified," Jiangchen said coldly. He had never been merciful to his enemies. "Stop!" However, before Jiangchen's sharp sword could land, Elder Lu's voice came from afar. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Lu stood in front of Baiyi and released a burst of spirit energy from his palm, causing Jiangchen to retreat. "This is a battle between disciples. As an elder, you also want to interfere?" Jiangchen said in a deep voice. "He has already lost. Why do you have to continue?" Elder Lu frowned and said, "We are all disciples of the Northern Bright Court. Why do you have to do this?" "What a joke!" Jiangchen said coldly. "If I was not stronger than him, my cultivation and hands would have been crippled by him. If I was the one who was defeated, would you save me?" Elder Lu was silent for a while after hearing Jiangchen's words, as if he was thinking. After thinking for a while, Jiangchen understood that if he were the one who lost, Elder Lu would not save him. There should be a limit to the sparring between disciples. "Today's matter is over," Elder Lu said softly. After waving his hand, he left with Baiyi. As Baiyi left, he turned back to look at Jiangchen, and a trace of contempt flashed across his eyes. With Elder Lu around, not many disciples in the outer court can touch Baiyi. Sigh, Elder Lu's biological grandson is so well taken care of. Discussions could be heard all around, and when Jiangchen heard it, it angered him. A backdoor entrant? Jiangchen thought to himself. His eyes were cold as he took a deep look at Baiyi's back. Without saying anything, he turned around and entered the wooden house. "Boss, we're letting it go just like that?" Jianglu asked with a worried expression. "That guy seems to have Elder Lu's protection. After today's matter, will Elder Lu make things difficult for us?" "Elder Lu doesn't have the final say in the Northern Ming Hall," Jiangchen said. "Baiyi has a backer, so can I." After saying that, Jiangqin used the power of the contract to send a voice transmission to Bai Fingyu. Find me a few elders in the inner court to back me up. Bai Fingyu was cultivating when he suddenly heard the voice transmission. He was stunned for a moment and subconsciously asked, "What's wrong? Did you suffer a loss in the outer court? Do you need me to take action?" "No need, he has an elder backing him up," Jiangqin said coldly. "Find me an elder, one with a higher status than Elder Lu. It's best if he can kill him with just one sentence." "Okay," Bai Fingyu said. Following that, Jiangqin cultivated in the wooden house. Other than going to the square to listen to the class every morning, he never left the house. Until 3 days later, on this day, Jiangqin was still cultivating and thinking about how to obtain the inheritance of a divine spiritual sense user. However, suddenly, the newly repaired wooden door was kicked open again. "Kid! Let's see how you're going to survive today!" Bai stood outside the wooden house with an arrogant face. Beside him was an inner court disciple. Obviously, Bai couldn't defeat Jiangqin and had called for a helper. "Low-level Dao realm?" Jiangqin ignored Bai. After sizing up the inner court disciple, he sent a voice transmission to Bai Fingyu. In less than 5 breaths' time, they saw Bai Fingyu flying over. Her body flickered, and she stood beside Jiangqin. "Beat him up!" At this moment, Jiangqin didn't say a word. His 3 words shocked Bai Fingyu as he could feel Jiangqin's fiery anger. "Fingyu? Who is he to you?" However, before Bai Fingyu could make a move, the inner court disciple suddenly said with a smile, "I think there must be a misunderstanding here. Lin Lai, he's my master." Bai Fingyu remembered that Jiangqin had concealed his identity, and quickly changed his words. "He's my younger brother!" "My younger brother, your ass!" Jiangqin's heart was stuffy. His anger had yet to dissipate, and he was angered by Bai Fingyu again. However, Jiangqin didn't want to be calculative. After all, if his identity was exposed, the secret pavilion might come here. At that time, it would be troublesome. "So he's your younger brother?" "I said it was a misunderstanding." The inner court disciple smiled and cupped his hands towards Jiangqin. "Brother, it's all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding? This is a misunderstanding?" Jiangqin said coldly as he pointed at the broken wooden door with a trace of coldness in his eyes. "Pa!" Just as Jiangqin finished speaking, he saw the inner court disciple slap Bai's face. This slap was very strong, and he was caught off guard. Half of White Shirt's face swelled up. Chapter 57. Senior Brother Lin Lai, you! Bai was dumbfounded, completely unable to understand the situation. "In the future, if you dare to bully Bai Fingyu's brother again, do you believe that I will break your leg?" Lin Lai shouted angrily. Then, a smile appeared on his face as he looked at Bai Fingyu and asked, "Fingyu, do you have time to discuss cultivation with me?" "No time, scram!" Bai Fingyu angrily rebuked. Then, a gentle smile appeared on her face as she asked Jiangqin, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." Jiangqin shook his head as he looked at Bai Fingyu with a strange expression. Then, he looked at Lin Lai and asked, "What's the situation between you two?" "Brother, I am one of Fingyu's pursuers." Lin Lai did not hide his admiration for Bai Fingyu as he walked to Jiangqin's side and took out a bunch of elixirs. He smiled and said, "In the future, can I ask brother to put in a few good words for me in front of Fingyu?" "Oh." Jiangqin was relieved. With Bai Fingyu's beauty, no matter where she went, she would be admired by tens of thousands of people. At the side, Bai was in a mess. Even in his dreams, he did not expect that the helper he invited would be turned around. Bai was speechless and was filled with resentment. He looked deeply at Jiangqin and said coldly, "Do you only know how to stand behind a woman? What kind of man are you? If it wasn't for Elder Lu, you would be a cripple now," Jiangqin said in disdain. Then, his eyebrows twitched as he mocked. "Why? Are you envious? If you have the ability, then find a woman too." When these words came out, Bai was stunned for a moment. He did not expect Jiangqin to be so shameless. Even that inner courtyard disciple was startled by this. Bai Fengyu was indifferent as she knew Jiang Chen's strength. Even if she did not come today, nothing would happen to Jiang Chen. However, Bai Fengyu also knew that Jiang Chen did not want to reveal his identity. Thus, he was more low-key than before. "It's fine, you can go back." Jiang Chen waved his hand and looked at Bai Yi. He smiled and said, "The next time you come looking for trouble, you won't be so lucky. Next time, I'll definitely cripple you," Bai Yi said coldly. After saying that, Bai Yi turned around and left. A sinister look flashed in his eyes. That inner academy disciple stayed behind. After chatting with Jiang Chen for a while, he left. "How are you doing in the inner yard?" Jiang Chen asked. "They're just a bunch of stinky men." Bai Fengyu frowned and pouted. "When are we leaving this place? Those people from the inner yard are looking at me with dirty eyes. I'll stay here for a while longer. Once I get what I want, I'll leave." Jiang Chen smiled and said, "Just bear with it. Besides, you can't blame them. Who asked you to be so beautiful?" When Bai Fengyu heard this, a trace of hidden bitterness appeared in his eyes. Yes, she was so beautiful, but was it useful? "You don't seem to care much about me. The great elder of the inner yard wants to accept me as his disciple," Bai Fengyu said. "Didn't you want me to find a backer? How about the great elder of the inner yard? It's fine as long as he's stronger than Elder Lu," Jiang Chen said. He glanced at Bai Fengyu and reminded her. "You can't just take anyone as your master. You're already my disciple. If you take someone else as your master, humph." When these words came out, Bai Fengyu couldn't help but roll her eyes. She was speechless. Not taking the great elder as his master, but wanting the great elder to be his backer? Wasn't this a little too difficult? However, Jiang Chen didn't care about this. He waved his hand and said, "Go back, I'm going to cultivate." "Oh." Bai Fengyu's face was filled with bitterness. In her heart, she was thinking that Jiang Chen hadn't taught her for a long time. Why did this master feel like a hands-off shopkeeper? He only took in disciples and didn't teach them. After that, Bai Fengyu left. Jiang Chen continued to cultivate in the small wooden hut. However, Jiang Chen wasn't cultivating his realm now. Instead, he was cultivating some martial techniques. Before he obtained the inheritance of a spiritual perception, Jiang Chen didn't want to raise his realm. After all, what he wanted to do was to reach the strongest in every realm. Otherwise, with Jiang Chen's talent, his current realm would have long surpassed the Dao realm. "Many martial techniques are rusty," Jiang Chen said softly. Sitting cross-legged on the small wooden bed, all kinds of martial techniques flashed through his mind. Among them, there was no lack of martial techniques that surpassed the heaven tier. However, with Jiang Chen's current cultivation, he couldn't display martial techniques that surpassed the heaven tier at all. As for martial techniques like the heavenly dance of light and dark, 9 words of battle, Jiang Chen didn't want to display them too much. After all, these 2 martial techniques were seen by others before. If he used them too frequently and was detected by others, people from the secret pavilion would definitely come knocking on his door. By then, even if the Northern Brilliance Institute wanted to protect him, it would be impossible to defend himself against the assassins of the secret pavilion. The Heavenly Imperious Body Art, this martial technique is suitable for Jiang Lu. The Ice Emperor Scriptures I can give them to Bai Fengyu. The Great Dao Pill Scriptures and the Sacred Formation Technique can be given to Tong Sang and Lu Shan. Meanwhile, Jiang Chen's mind was constantly reviewing the martial techniques that he knew. He even selected the martial techniques that were suitable for the people around him. Even for Mo Xingtian, Jiang Chen had prepared the Dusk Demon God's Succession martial technique for him. However, Jiang Chen still felt that there were too few people around him. He had many successions, and many peerless techniques. He wanted to pass them down, and establish his own faction, allowing the reverent sect to regain its former glory. Pill Dao formations, I'll leave them to Tong Sang and Lu Shan. Barriers, weapon refinement, talismans. I still need to find someone to inherit them. Otherwise, it would be too troublesome if I had to do everything myself. Jiangchen mumbled. Dong! Dong! A day later, a bell rang in the outer court. It was a gathering of the outer court disciples. What's going on? A gathering order? Something big happened in the outer court? I've been in the Northern Ming Hall for 3 years, but this is the first time I've heard a gathering order. The outer court disciples were puzzled. Not long after, they all gathered in the square of the outer court. Jiang Chun and Jiang Lu stood at the back of the crowd, keeping a low profile. Beside them, the blood-eye Yi Chang Feng and the others stood silently as well. It was obvious that no matter how good they were outside, they were still keeping a low profile in the Northern Ming Hall to avoid being taken advantage of. After all, they were all new students now. Where's young Master Luo? Yi Chang Feng looked around and realized that young Master Luo was not here. When Silent Destruction heard this, he frowned and said, I think his cousin is here. When he said this, Yi Chang Feng's expression changed slightly. He said softly, If his cousin is here, then the Northern Ming Hall is going to be lively. Yi Chang Feng glanced at Jiangchen with an odd look while he was speaking, but he didn't say anything. Jiangchen noticed this and could not help but be curious. Who is young Master Luo's cousin? Could it be that young Master Luo's cousin is here to pick on me? Chapter 58. Only Yi Chang Feng and Silent Void Nyen knew who young Master Luo's cousin was. However, they did not care about this matter and would not spread it around. However, Yi Chang Feng and Silent Void Nye both knew that young Master Luo and Jiangchen had a grudge against each other. Now that young Master Luo's cousin was here, would he fight with Jiangchen? The 4 Great Academies will be holding the 4 Great Academies ranking tournament in 3 days. The reason I've gathered you all here today is to select 10 people to participate in the 4 Great Academies ranking tournament. Elder Lu stood at the front of the crowd, his voice loud like a bell. As soon as he said this, many of the outer court disciples' faces were filled with excitement. The Northern Ming, Southern Emperor, Eastern Li, and Western Snow colleges were the sub-colleges of the 4 Directions Divine Colleges. Every 3 years, the 4 Directions Divine Colleges would order the disciples of the 4 colleges to spar and be ranked. If one could get a good ranking in the 4 Directions ranking tournament, not only would the 4 colleges reward them with treasures, but the 4 Directions Divine Colleges would also reward them with special items. If one could get into the top 3 of the 4 Directions ranking tournament, they could even enter the 4 Directions Divine Colleges to cultivate. This was an opportunity for the disciples of the 4 colleges, a chance for them to leap over the Dragon's Gate. Once they entered the 4 Directions Divine Colleges and became a disciple, it meant that they would have endless cultivation resources and a high status. On the Godless Continent, the 4 Directions Divine Colleges were ranked 10th among the many colleges. As long as one became a disciple of the 4 Directions Divine Colleges, they would be respected no matter where they went. Even the top sects would treat the disciples of the 4 Directions Divine Colleges with respect. However, Elder Lu had also said that only 10 people could participate in the 4 Directions ranking tournament. There were so many outer court disciples, it was too difficult to be one of the 10. Us new students definitely have no chance. Sigh, these older students have been cultivating for longer than us, and their realms are higher than ours. How can we compete with them? A few disciples who had just entered the Northern Ming College sighed, their hearts filled with resentment. However, there was no such thing as fairness in this world. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame themselves for being born late and cultivating late. Their realms were not as high as others. However, among the new students there were a few who were full of confidence. For example, Yi Chang Feng, Silent Destruction, and even the Blood-Eye who was defeated by Jianglu. Although they were also new students, in terms of strength and realm, they were not inferior to these older students. Of course, they were definitely incomparable to the inner court disciples. However, when compared to these outer court disciples, they were still quite strong. Next, I will begin the registration process. If you have any objections, you can voice them out, Elder Lu said. After that, Elder Lu coughed softly and began to sign up. First, Bai, Elder Lu said. Once those words were spoken, the group of outer court disciples were all speechless. After all, Bai was Elder Lu's relative, and Elder Lu had always taken good care of Bai. Now, no one was surprised that Bai was able to occupy a spot. They only felt that Elder Lu was too brazen in using his connections. Second, Chiu Feng. Elder Lu continued. This time, no one said anything. This was because Chiu Feng had been in the Northern Bright Hall for 3 years, and his strength was recognized as the strongest among the outer disciples. Third, Mu Li. The fourth one, Qin Linhai. Elder Lu called out 4 names in a row, and no one present had any objections. When he called out the 5th name, some people were dissatisfied and voiced their objections on the spot. 5th, young Lord Luo. At that moment, many people frowned. Someone even said directly, Elder Lu, isn't it inappropriate to let a new student participate in the 4 directions ranking competition? Does he have the strength? Many people voiced their opinions. How could a group of older students allow a new student to occupy a spot? If anyone has any objections, you can come up and fight with young Lord Luo. If you win, you can replace young Lord Luo, Elder Lu said as he asked the people to make way for him. Then, young Lord Luo walked over from afar with an arrogant look on his face. Beside him was a young man in a long golden robe. Who's not convinced? After a few breaths, young Lord Luo stood on the open ground and swept his gaze across the crowd. When he saw Jiangchen at the back of the crowd, he could not help but raise his eyebrows and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Childish. Jiangchen curled his lips. Naturally, he did not take young Lord Luo's provocation seriously. However, Jiangchen was somewhat interested in the young man beside young Lord Luo. This was because Jiangchen felt a trace of a special aura from the young man. However, he could not recall what it was at that moment. I'll go! At the same time, among the outer court disciples, an older disciple who had been in the sect for 3 years walked out. Bang! Bang! Immediately, the battle between the two of them began. However, after a few breaths, young Lord Luo struck out with his palm. It was like a black stone tablet that directly sent his opponent flying. Young Lord Luo wins, Elder Lu announced. At that moment, many people shut up. This was because they could see that although young Lord Luo had just entered the Northern Ming Hall, his strength was stronger than the average older student. Moreover, young Lord Luo had just broken through to the upper level of the thought state. 6th, Yichang Feng. 7th, Silent Destruction. 8th, Crimson Eye. 9th, Jiang Lu. Next, Elder Lu continued to sign up. Every one of them was a new student. As a result, there were naturally people who were not convinced and went up to challenge them one by one. However, Yichang Feng and the rest were disciples of large sects and were very strong. These outer court disciples of the Northern Ming Hall were naturally no match for them. Last, Xinjiang, Elder Lu said as he swept his gaze across the crowd and looked at Jiangchen, who was at the back of the crowd. Xinjiang was the pseudonym Jiangchen used after disguising himself. Him? Is he qualified to represent the Northern Ming Hall in the ranking tournament of the 4 directions? Young Lord Luo said with a look of disdain. It seemed that ever since he had broken through to the upper level of the thought state, he had become more confident in himself. I don't agree either, Bai also said. He already had a grudge against Jiangchen. How could he allow Jiangchen to participate in the ranking tournament of the 4 directions? I think it's quite good. However, at that moment, from the back of the mountain, a light voice was heard. After this voice was heard, Elder Lu immediately nodded and said, It's him. No objections. Why? Why? Everyone was stunned, and they were even more furious. Previously, they could still voice their opinions and fight with those who were dissatisfied. However, when it came to Jiangchen, they could not even voice their opinions. Because this is the order of the Inner Yard Great Elder, Elder Lu said in a low voice. He was even more confused. What was the relationship between Jiangchen and the Great Elder? How could an outer court freshman attract the attention of the Inner Yard Great Elder? Moreover, the Great Elder had personally spoken. The relationship between them. I don't want to go. However, Jiangchen shook his head and refused. It's a waste of time. What? What are you talking about? Are you crazy? Chapter 59. Everyone was dumbfounded. They could not believe that Jiangchen had actually rejected it. Many people wanted to participate in the Four Directions ranking tournament, but unfortunately, the quota was limited. Now, Jiangchen had been personally recognized by the First Elder, but he had rejected it. Xinjiang, don't mess around. Participating in the Four Directions ranking tournament is beneficial to you. If you can get a good ranking, the Northern Light Hall will reward you, Elder Lu said in a deep voice. Moreover, this time, the First Elder has personally named you. You can't refuse. To be able to participate in the Four Directions ranking tournament was an honor for everyone. Even if they did not get a ranking, it was enough. However, Jiangchen had his own ideas. If he participated in the Four Directions ranking tournament, with Jiangchen's strength, he could naturally get a good ranking, even the first place. However, doing so might expose Jiangchen's identity. Jiangchen was not afraid of fighting openly, but he was afraid of being stabbed in the back. Especially when facing the secret pavilion, Jiangchen was now having a headache. At that time, if his identity was exposed, Jiangchen's situation would be dangerous. At that time, even if he got first place, entered the Four Directions divine halls, and even obtained the inheritance of a divine spiritual cultivator, so what? He might lose his life, so what was the use of these things? You have no room to refuse. Unless you withdraw from the Northern Light Hall, Elder Lu said coldly. As soon as these words came out, Jiangchen could not help but frown. He was quite unhappy in his heart. If he withdrew from the Northern Light Hall, it meant that everything he had done before would be in vain. All right, I'll participate. After thinking for a while, Jiangchen reluctantly agreed. Of course, Jiangchen had also thought about it. At most, he would participate and fight a few rounds. As long as he did not use his real strength, no one would find out. 3 days later, gather here, Elder Lu said, and then dispersed. When the meeting was over, Jiangchen went back to the log cabin. Jiang Lu was standing beside him, not saying a word. Although Jiang Lu was honest, he was also shrewd and knew what Jiangchen was thinking. Jiangchen, I'm afraid I'll have to leave the Four Directions ranking tournament to you, said Jiangchen. Leave it to me? What do you mean? Jiang Lu asked with a puzzled look. First place, of course, Jiangchen said snappily. I can't expose myself. Otherwise, a mere Four Directions ranking competition is nothing. Hearing this, Jiangchen secretly nodded. In his heart, he was also very clear that with Jiangchen's strength, getting first place was not as simple as eating. However, Jianglu was also depressed and couldn't help but ask. Even if you did, would the people from the hidden pavilion see through your identity? Without using the heavenly dance of brightness and darkness and the 9 words of battle, who would know that Jiangchen is Jiangchen? It's better to be safe than sorry. Jiangchen sighed. You haven't experienced death, nor have you experienced despair. You don't understand what it feels like. It's like taking 1 step into heaven and 1 step into hell. The current me will no longer joke around with my life. Once upon a time, Jiangchen, as the godly monarch, had thought that this world, this firmament, belonged to him. He was invincible. However, it wasn't until the moment he split open the heavens that he realized that this so-called invincibility was nothing more than a joke. Faced with the sudden encirclement of 36 traitors over gods, Jiangchen had sunk into despair and fallen from heaven to hell. From then on, Jiangchen understood that he could joke around with anything but his own life. Even if there was the slightest difference, Jiangchen would still treat it seriously. Get first place, enter the Four Directions divine houses, and then obtain the heritage of a divine spiritual sense. Jiangchen said. Can you do it? That? I'm afraid it'll be very difficult, Jiangli said weakly. I'm only in the will realm, and there'll definitely be origin realm, or even Tao realm cultivators participating this time. What can I use to fight for first place? Don't worry about that, Jiangchen said. Since only the outer courtyard disciples of the four superhouses are participating, there won't be any Dao realm cultivators. But, even if there aren't any Dao realm cultivators, there'll still be Origin realm cultivators. Jianglu smiled bitterly. Origin realm cultivators have their true qi merged into one. How am I supposed to fight them? Take it and study it yourself. Jiangchen didn't say much and handed the worldly tyrant body scripture to Jianglu. This cultivation technique, as its name suggested, was quite domineering. Once successfully cultivated, the might of one's physical body could trample the earth and dominate the heavens. Coupled with Jianglu's sacred Archean body, it was enough for him to sweep through everything with his physical strength. Although time was a little tight since he had just started cultivating, as long as he cultivated a little, Jianglu had a chance of getting first place with his strength. What about you? Aren't you going to make a move? Jianglu asked. Of course I'm going to, Jiangchen said softly. It depends on the situation. If anything happens, it won't be too late for me to make a move. After that, Jiangchen didn't say anything else. He closed his eyes and rested, doing nothing. After all, before he obtained the heritage of a divine spiritual sense, Jiangchen wouldn't continue cultivating. His cultivation remained at the lower level of the will realm. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In the early morning of the third day, Elder Lu called Jiangchen and the others and set off for the South Emperor Courtyard. This year's ranking tournament of the four directions was held in the South Emperor Courtyard. The distance between the South Emperor Courtyard and the North Ming Courtyard was more than 3,000 miles. Fortunately, the North Ming Courtyard had Pegasi mounts, which were several times faster than spiritual horses. The distance of 3,000 miles was covered in South Emperor Courtyard in less than half a day on Pegasi. The South Emperor Courtyard is the strongest among the four courtyards. If nothing goes wrong, the South Emperor Courtyard should get first place in this year's ranking tournament of the four directions, Elder Lu said. Elder Lu, you can't say that. With us here, the South Emperor Courtyard might not get first place, young Lord Luo said confidently. As far as I know, the strongest among the outer courtyard disciples of the South Emperor Courtyard has reached the upper level of the Origin realm. He's only one step away from the Tao realm. Elder Lu sighed. It'll be good enough if one of the 10 of you can get into the top 10. Young Lord Luo and the others were rather helpless when they saw Elder Lu's lack of confidence. In their hearts, so what if the South Emperor Courtyard was strong? Before they fought, the outcome was still undecided. Elder Lu, long time no see. Your complexion is still the same as before, healthy and spirited. At this moment, an old man walked towards them. This person was the South Emperor Courtyard's outer courtyard Grand Elder, Jiao Mozhan. His cultivation was profound and had reached the upper level of the Tao realm. Beside him was a young man who was looking at Jiangchen and the others with disdain. Elder Lu hasn't changed. The disciples of the North Ming Courtyard haven't changed either. They still look so weak, the young man said disdainfully. Young Lord Luo and the others were enraged when they heard this. What did you say? Suppressing you is as easy as lifting my hand. Young Lord Luo shouted angrily. Kid, don't be so rude. What will happen to your face when you're defeated by us? Crimson Eye said. However, when the young man heard this, he snorted and shrugged his shoulders indifferently. I hope you can enter the top 10. Chapter 60. Elder Lu, the Four Directions ranking tournament is about to begin. This way, please. Jiao Mozhan smiled and gestured for them to enter. He then led Elder Lu and the others to the training field of the South Emperor Courtyard. When everyone arrived at the martial arts field, there were already 4 arenas that had been raised and were surrounded by people. There were seats in all 4 directions of the training field. Those from the North Light Courtyard were arranged to sit in the northern seats. Silence reigned both inside and outside the training field. No one spoke. This was because the Four Directions ranking tournament had strict rules. Both the participants and the spectators had to remain silent to avoid disturbing the other participants. This year, the South Emperor Courtyard is honored to host the Four Directions ranking tournament. The most outstanding outer courtyard disciples of the 4 courtyards will exchange pointers here. I hope everyone will display their true strength at the time, but remember not to kill anyone. Jiao Mozhan, the host of this year's 4 Directions ranking tournament, stood in one of the arenas and slowly explained the rules. After that, the representatives of each courtyard went out to draw lots to determine the order of the competition and their opponents. Half an hour later, when everything was ready, the 4 Directions ranking tournament began. Tuoba Qingran of the Eastleigh courtyard. Jiang Chen received a number plate with some information about his opponent written on it. His name, identity, and even his opponent's cultivation. Damn, what kind of luck do you have? Your first opponent is Tuoba Qingran. Jiang Lu glanced at Jiang Chen's number plate and was speechless. Tuoba Qingran's reputation was quite resounding. He was a young expert on the honor roll. He was ranked above the Blood Eye. His cultivation had even reached the lower level of the Origin realm. What does that have to do with me? Just fight, Jiang Chen said softly. I'll just let him have a few moves and pretend to be defeated. Then I'll be done. That's true. Jiang Lu nodded. However, Jiang Lu's face fell when he saw his own number plate. He smiled wryly. Boss, I'm afraid I won't be able to take first place. What do you mean? Jiang Chen asked. Look. Jiang Lu placed the serial number in front of Jiang Chen with an awkward expression. Upper Origin Realm, 9th on the Proclamation of Azure Sky, 3rd among the outer disciples of the South Emperor Courtyard. Jiang Chen rolled his eyes. He was speechless. He had thought that he was unlucky enough to get Tuoba Qingran as his opponent. But seeing Jiang Lu as his opponent, Jiang Chen couldn't help but feel that Jiang Lu's luck was really bad. Let's fight first. If we can't win, I'll think of something else, Jiang Chen said softly. That being said, Jiang Chen also knew that no matter how strong Jiang Lu was, with his sacred body of Archean, it would be difficult for him to compete with the person who ranked 9th on the honor roll of Azure Cloud. After all, the gap between their cultivation levels was too great. Of course, if Jiang Lu had cultivated the worldly tyrant body scripture earlier, he might have had a chance to defeat his opponent. But the key point was that Jiang Lu had only practiced the heaven and earth tyrant body scripture for 3 days. What use was that? It's starting! North Ming Courtyard's Blood Pupil versus South Emperor Courtyard's Illusionist. At that moment, the first battle had begun. However, the battle only lasted for a dozen breaths before Blood Pupil was defeated. Blood Pupil was an expert in ocular techniques, which was also a type of illusion. Unfortunately, his opponent was highly skilled in illusion. From the moment Blood Pupil stepped into the ring, he was already under the illusion. From the beginning to the end, Blood Pupil didn't even have a chance to attack. He was trapped in the illusion. Jiang Lu, if you encounter an illusionist in the future, you have to be careful, Jiang Chen said. Although your physical body is strong, your mental strength is your weakness. Every illusionist has a strong mental strength. Jiang Lu nodded. After that, a few more battles took place. After half an hour, it was young Lord Luo's turn to fight in North Ming Courtyard. I'll win for North Ming Courtyard first. Young Lord Luo was quite confident. He was the second person from North Ming Courtyard to fight. Since Blood Pupil, who was the first to fight, had lost, he naturally had to win to save some face for North Ming Courtyard. Moreover, his opponent was of the same cultivation level as him. Young Lord Luo was confident that he could defeat his opponent. However, when the battle started, young Lord Luo's face fell. That was because his opponent was a boundary master. In just one exchange, young Lord Luo was trapped in the boundary and couldn't move. Then, a storm roared in the boundary and drowned him. He was defeated. He was so confident, but he was defeated in one move. Jiang Chen curled his lips and said to Jiang Lu, "Did you see that? Don't be blindly confident in the future. He's a bad example." Jiang Lu nodded obediently again. Next, one battle after another continued. Half a day later, it was Jiang Lu's turn. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression turned serious. When he saw Jiang Lu's opponent, his face darkened. This was because Jiang Chen could see at a glance that Jianglu's opponent's cultivation level was at the lower level of the Tao realm. Now, his opponent had suppressed his cultivation level. He suppressed his cultivation level, but his foundation is still there. I'm afraid Jianglu is going to lose. Jiang Chen sighed. He didn't expect the South Emperor courtyard to be so shameless in order to win. One had to know that the 4 courtyards had a clear rule that anyone who entered the Tao realm had to enter the inner courtyard and become an inner courtyard disciple. Inner courtyard disciples couldn't participate in the 4 Directions ranking tournament. The 4 Directions ranking tournament also had a clear rule that those who surpassed the origin realm couldn't participate. In the end, Jianglu's battle ended. He was no match for his opponent, and was crushed. Boss, I feel like something's wrong. Jianglu walked down from the arena with a sullen face. How can an origin realm cultivator have such strong true qi? And his true qi seems to have a trace of spiritual power. Nonsense, your opponent is a Tao realm cultivator. Jiang Chen said softly. It's fine. Winning and losing is common. If you fight in the same realm, not many people are your match. What? Tao realm? The South Emperor courtyard is so shameless? Jianglu was furious. He had been very puzzled before. With his strength and physical strength, how could he be crushed? Even if he was defeated, he should have some room to fight back. However, Jianglu had been at a disadvantage since he walked onto the arena, until he was knocked to the ground by a palm. Boss, I lost. Then the first place of the 4 Directions ranking tournament. Jianglu said softly, helpless. The 4 Directions ranking tournament was very simple. The loser was eliminated, and the winner participated in the next round. Jianglu was already defeated, so he couldn't fight again. First place must be obtained. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. The inheritance of a spiritual sense is most likely in the 4 Directions divine court. But, boss, didn't you say you didn't want to fight? Jianglu frowned. Not wanting to fight doesn't mean I can't, Jiang Chen said. You've lost, so I can only do it myself. Chapter 61. With Jianglu's strength and physique, he could even put up a fight against an origin realm cultivator. But who would have thought that the South Emperor courtyard would send a Tao realm cultivator to win? In this way, Jiang Chen had to fight in person if he wanted to win first place in the 4 Directions ranking tournament. Next, it was Jiang Chen's turn. Low-level thought state. So weak? At this moment, as soon as Jiang Chen stepped into the arena, there were some discussions and contemptuous voices around him. That was because among the participants of the 4 Directions ranking tournament, the lowest cultivation was at the middle level of the thought state, and Jiang Chen was the only one at the lower level of the thought state. Many people were confused. Why did the North Ming courtyard send a person with such a cultivation level like Jiang Chen? Was he here to embarrass himself? Admit defeat yourself. Tuoba Qingran also looked contemptuous and had no desire to fight. After all, for an origin realm cultivator like him, a thought state cultivator was not strong enough. Noisy, Jiang Chen said in a low voice. A breeze blew under his feet. Like a phantom, he dashed up to Tuoba Qingran in only a few steps. Petty tricks. Tuoba Qingran curled his lips and slapped across the air. His genuine qi was violent like a wave. Next to him, many palm prints appeared out of nowhere. Like a storm, they fell on Jiang Chen abruptly. Immovable mountain! The genuine qi in Jiang Chen's body burst out. The shadow of a mountain appeared behind him, and a stream of heaven and earth power gathered. When the palm prints fell, the shadow of the mountain shook. The heaven and earth power gathered like an invisible river, rushing out and destroying the palm prints. Then Jiang Chen dashed forward and weaved a mudra with his hands. Many runes scattered in the surroundings. Buzz! With a buzzing sound, a bounded domain was formed. At this moment, Tuoba Qingran widened his eyes. It seemed that he did not expect Jiang Chen to know the bounded domain. However, Tuoba Qingran's cultivation level was so high that he could move freely even in Jiang Chen's bounded domain. Boom! With a loud bang, Tuoba Chingran punched the air, and his genuine chi spread out like endless waves. Wave after wave, Jiang Chen's barrier shattered. However, this situation was within Jiang Chen's expectations. Besides, from the very beginning, Jiang Chen didn't think that the bounded domain could suppress Tuoba Chingran. What he needed to do was to buy some time and condense a talisman. Lightning drawl. The moment the barrier collapsed, a talisman was formed in Jiang Chen's palm, and a mysterious light burst forth. At the same time, Jiang Chen quickly retreated to the edge of the arena. You want to run? Just admit defeat, Tuoba Chingran said scornfully. What's the use of running? If you don't admit defeat, I'll beat you until you admit defeat. You should take care of yourself first, Jiang Chen said mockingly as he pointed to the sky. Hearing this, Tuoba Chingran was stunned. Then, he heard a loud bang above his head. He looked up and saw a talisman flickering in the air, and a tribulation cloud appeared above his head. Rumble! With the sound of thunder, before Tuoba Chingran could react, a purple thunderbolt as thick as a bucket fell down. Boom! After several consecutive explosions, Tuoba Chingran stood there like a target. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't resist the thunderbolts. Finally, after several more thunderbolts, Tuoba Chingran was lying on the ground, and his whole body was burnt black. A trace of horror appeared in his eyes. He raised his weak palm slightly and said softly, I admit defeat. This guy knows so much. He knows both the bounded domain and the talisman. Genius! Exclamations were heard all around. Even the elders of the various courtyards were looking at him. The people of the Baiming courtyard also opened their eyes wide. They didn't expect Jiang Chen to have such means. No wonder the first elder thinks so highly of him. Elder Lu thought to himself. However, he didn't know that the first elder of the Baiming courtyard valued Jiang Chen because of Bai Fingyu. Otherwise, the first elder of the inner courtyard wouldn't have the time to pay attention to an outer courtyard disciple. He has many means, but unfortunately, his cultivation is too low. He can't reach the end. A handsome young man from the South Emperor courtyard said slowly. There was no emotion in his eyes. They were as calm as still water. Beside him, several elders of the South Emperor courtyard stood side by side. They silently agreed with the young man's words. Wang Teng, will you be able to get first place in this 4 directions ranking competition? One of the elders asked. The young man named Wang Teng was still as calm as ever. He nodded slightly and said, No problem. That's good. You're the strongest outer courtyard disciple of the South Emperor courtyard. You're ranked 6th on the green cloud roll. It shouldn't be a problem for you to get first place in this 4 directions ranking competition. Jiao Mozhan nodded. He was very confident in Wang Teng. At this moment, Jiang Chen had returned to his seat after defeating Tuoba Ching. He closed his eyes and rested. Beside him, Jiang Lu was full of smiles. You're indeed the boss. You defeated Tuoba Chingran, an origin realm cultivator, with the strength of a lower thought state cultivator. Humph, what's so great about that? He just played some tricks. Young Lord Luo's voice came from nearby. His words were full of hostility. Tricks? Talismans, boundaries, these are tricks? If you're so capable, you can carve a few talismans and make a boundary too. Jiang Lu glanced sideways at young Lord Luo and said lightly, You're always pretending to be the best, but in the end, you still lost. You! Young Lord Luo was furious. His entire face turned red when his scar was exposed. I'll teach you two a lesson when we get back to Northern Ming Hall, young Lord Luo said to himself. Then, he shut his mouth and stopped talking. The ranking tournament of the 4 directions continued. After another 15 minutes, the first round ended. It can't be! Northern Ming Hall is so weak now? Only one person advanced? And it's the one with the lowest cultivation level. What a joke! At this moment, many people were looking at Northern Ming Hall with strange expressions. Their eyes were full of mockery. This was because after the first round, everyone except for Jiang Chen had been eliminated. Elder Lu's face was as dark as ink. Even he did not expect that only one of the 10 contestants would remain after the first round. Moreover, it was the one with the lowest cultivation level. Sigh, it looks like Northern Ming Hall is at the bottom again in this year's ranking tournament of the 4 directions. I'm afraid we won't even make it into the top 10. Elder Lu sighed. That's not necessarily true. As long as the boss is willing to fight, we can even get first place, let alone the top 10, Jiang Lu said. However, how could Elder Lu and the others believe his words? After all, Jiang Chen's cultivation level was too low. The second round begins now. Half an hour later, Jiao Mozhan announced the start of the second round. Chapter 62. The second round was different from the previous ones. This round was a challenge round. As long as one succeeded in challenging one person, they would advance to the next round. Everyone knew that the weak ones would be picked on. Many people would choose to challenge those who looked weaker. This way, they could ensure that they would advance to the next round. At this moment, Jiang Chen was sitting in his seat, but he could feel the gazes of the disciples from the other 3 courtyards. Needless to say, in their eyes, Jiang Chen's cultivation was enough to be ranked among the weaklings. Everyone wants to challenge me? Jiang Chen thought to himself, but he was secretly laughing. So what if they were in the lower level of the thought state? If they really fought, even the origin state cultivators might not be his match. I challenge him! After a few breaths, someone from the West Snow courtyard stood up and pointed at Jiang Chen with a smile. This person was in the middle level of the thought state. Compared to the others, he was not very strong. Fortunately, he met Jiang Chen, who was in a lower level than him. In this way, this person thought that he would definitely advance to the next round. You have a good eye. Jiang Chen smiled and walked into the arena. You have a good eye. You know that I am the strongest. You? The strongest? Ha ha. This person laughed wildly. His laughter was so exaggerated that there were tears in the corners of his eyes. Is it funny? Jiang Chen asked seriously. If you are the strongest, then what am I? I am stronger than you. Won't I take first place in this year's 4 directions ranking competition? This person laughed, but the true qi in his body had already erupted. Boom! In the next second, this person rushed out, and the shadow of a red bull appeared behind him. It was as if he had transformed into an ancient bull as he charged forward. As his feet landed on the ground, a series of dull thuds could be heard, causing the entire ring to tremble violently. Damn! This guy is really courting death. Jiang Lu saw this and wiped the cold sweat on the person's forehead. He knew very well how strong Jiang Chen's physical body was. It was stronger than his sacred body of antiquity. And now, this person had rushed over. Was he going to compete with his physical body? What was the difference between this and suicide? Sure enough, when Jiang Chen saw the other party rushing over, a hint of mockery appeared at the corner of his mouth. He stood where he was and did not move at all, allowing the other party to charge in front of him. Then, Jiang Chen slowly raised his palm and pushed it forward. You're courting death! That person laughed disdainfully and also struck out with a palm. Gotcha! However, when the 2 palms collided, the man's face instantly turned pale. Jiang Chen's palm, and even his wrist, were broken. Even the illusory bull behind him was shattered into nothingness by Jiang Chen's palm strike. You are the first one who dares to compete with me in terms of physical strength, Jiang Chen whispered. He exerted a little force in his palm and the blood essence in his body burst out like flames, illuminating his entire body red. Puff! Then, the man was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Blood splattered all over the place. North Ming Courtyard, Xinjiang wins! Jiao Moshan's voice rang out. It was obvious that the disciple from the West Snow Courtyard had fainted and could not continue to fight. This guy has good taste. He dares to challenge our leader and even wants to compete with him head-on. Jiang Lu rolled his eyes. He had expected Jiang Chen to win. At this moment, Jiang Chen returned to his seat and looked at the contestants around him with a playful smile. I challenge him! After a few breaths, another person from the West Snow courtyard stood out. Moreover, this person seemed to want to avenge the previous person and chose to challenge Jiangchen again. When Jiangchen heard that, he could not help but be surprised. He asked, "Is this allowed? Take turns to challenge me?" "That's the rule." Elder Lu nodded and said, "Of course, if you can accept 3 challenges, you can also advance to the next round." "In that case, fine." Jiangchen nodded and stood in the arena again. This time, his opponent was very cautious. He knew that Jiangchen's physical body was very strong, so he used a martial arts technique at the beginning. He flipped his hands in icicles as thin as sharp needles condensed. Then, they covered the sky and covered the earth with frost, pressing down on Jiangchen. "Condense!" Jiangchen whispered. His hands formed a seal, and runes appeared one after another. In the blink of an eye, a barrier was formed. The ward was like a transparent cover, protecting Jiangchen. No matter how many ice thorns fell from the sky, they couldn't break the ward. At the same time, wind blew under Jiangchen's feet, and a green light appeared. His figure moved horizontally like a flash of lightning. In less than a blink of an eye, Jiangchen rushed to the front of his opponent. "What? So fast? This speed? What martial arts technique is that?" the crowd exclaimed. Most people didn't see how Jiangchen had dashed over. "This martial arts technique has probably reached the Earth stage." Wang Teng's eyes narrowed. "Beiming Institute has such a martial arts technique?" "I don't think so." Jiu Mozhan shook his head and said, "The 4 institutes are all from the 4 divine institutes, so they know each other very well." "Then this guy. Where did his martial arts technique come from?" A glint flashed past Wang Ting's eyes. His expressionless face finally showed some movement. In the depths of his eyes there was a hint of greed. The Earth Stage martial arts technique was the top martial arts technique in the 4 institutes. Only the most outstanding disciples were qualified to practice it. Although Wang Ting was the strongest disciple in the Outer Institute of the South Emperor Institute, he was not an Inner Institute disciple. How could he be qualified to practice the Earth Stage martial arts technique? "If I can get it, my strength will increase greatly. At that time, even if I enter the Inner Institute, I will have a place in it," Wang Tung thought to himself. Boom! At the same time, Jiangchen's battle had ended. He rushed to the front of his opponent and threw a punch, sending his opponent flying. He won immediately. "I don't think I should go down. If any of you want to challenge me, hurry up." Jiangchen did not leave the arena after winning. This was because he could feel the gazes around him. There were many people who wanted to challenge him. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to leave. He would go back to the arena anyway. His cultivation is so low, but he's full of confidence. Humph, he only defeated a few weaklings. How can he be so arrogant? A few disdainful voices came from the surroundings, but no one came out to challenge him. Those with a higher cultivation were not willing to lower their faces and fight Jiangchen. Those with low cultivations didn't have the nerve to challenge Jiangchen anymore. How boring! Jiangchen stood in the arena for a while. When he realized that no one came to challenge him, he walked down the arena with a bored expression. However, as soon as he returned to his seat, a disciple of the South Emperor Institute stood out and pointed at Jiangchen. He said, "You're used to being arrogant, aren't you? Let's go to the arena and teach you a lesson." Chapter 63. The South Emperor Hall was determined to win this year's ranking tournament. They didn't hesitate to violate the rules and allow a Dao realm cultivator to participate in the tournament. Apart from that, the outer disciples of the South Emperor Hall were all very strong. For example, this Middle Origin realm cultivator was one of the best amongst all the participants. "South Emperor Hall, do you have any shame?" Elder Lu's expression darkened as he glared at Jiu Mozhan in the distance. "You're letting a Middle Origin realm cultivator bully a disciple of the North Light Hall?" "Elder Lu, you can't say that." Jiu Mozhan smiled. "This is a competition. It's fine as long as he surrenders." We've never thought of bullying anyone. He paused, a hint of mockery flashing through his eyes. Plus, even if a disciple of the North Light Hall is bullied, can we be blamed for it? We can't blame others for our disciples being too weak. You. Elder Lu's eyes widened, but he had nothing to say. After all, 9 of the North Light Hall's disciples had been eliminated in the first round of the ranking tournament. The North Light Hall's strength was clear for all to see. They were indeed a little weak. Who did you say you were going to teach? Jiangchen walked up to the stage and spoke softly with narrowed eyes. When I was in this world, your ancestors hadn't even been born yet. Do you have the right to teach me how to behave? How arrogant! The youngster from the South Emperor Courtyard shouted in anger. His genuine energy exploded. He pointed his finger at Jiangchen. Like a sword radiance, it flew towards Jiangchen. Is that all? Jiangchen curled his lip and struck out with his palm like an indestructible blade. True Qi appeared on his palm, and a dazzling brilliance appeared. His body was like a piece of glazed golden jade, seemingly indestructible. You're courting death, his opponent said disdainfully. The difference between their cultivation levels was too great, yet Yi Futian was using his physical body to take his sword beam head-on. In his eyes, Yi Futian was courting death. However, when Jiangchen's palm came down, the crowd saw a resplendent light appear. Vortexes appeared on Jiangchen's palm. As the whirlpool rotated in reverse, the sword light was shattered. At the same time, Jiangchen's figure rushed out. A cool breeze appeared under his feet, and streams of true energy erupted around him. His Jinqi condensed into illusory figures that resembled clones. In just a few breaths' time, the arena was filled with Jiangchen's clones. Petty tricks, said the disciple of the South Emperor Courtyard disdainfully. He made some hand seals, condensed his qi and turned it into a talisman. He then slammed the talisman onto the ground. 1. The ground shook, and true energy spread out like waves. Wherever it passed, Jiangchen's clones were completely destroyed. However, after all the clones disappeared, there was no sign of Jiangchen in the ring. This stunned the disciples of the South Emperor Courtyard. Could it be that Jiangchen was turned into dust by him? Up there! Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the South Emperor clan. The disciple of the South Emperor Hall hurriedly looked up. With a single glance, the man's eyes couldn't help but be filled with shock. A cool breeze floated under Jiangchen's feet, and a pair of pure white true energy wings appeared on his back. As he flapped them, terrifying waves of true energy burst forth. Without waiting for his opponent to react, Jiangchen dove down. It was like a fallen meteor, bringing with it a terrifying fluctuation of true qi. There was even a bloody aura bursting out from its body. When he reached the disciple of the South Emperor Courtyard, Jiangchen was surrounded by a bloody light. He looked like a phoenix dripping with blood. Phoenix slash! Following Jiangchen's angry roar, the crowd saw a bloody light burst forth. A pair of palms dripping with blood struck the disciple of the South Emperor Courtyard. Pfft! In the next moment, the disciple of the South Emperor Courtyard spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out of the arena like a kite with its string cut. A lower level of the Will Realm defeated a middle level of the Origin Realm? Am I seeing this right? The difference in cultivation is so great, but he lost just like that? Cries of surprise rang out all around. Even the elders of the various courtyards were shocked. No one could believe that Jiangchen had won. This kid is extraordinary. Where did he come from? Only those in the Tao realm can fly in the air. This kid, what's up with him standing in the air? Martial techniques? He's already used several martial techniques since the beginning, and he's even mastered barriers and talismans. He's a monster! The crowd exclaimed. It was only now that they recognized Jiangchen's strength. At the same time, those of the South Emperor Courtyard were incomparably gloomy. Their disciple's cultivation was much higher than his opponent's, but he'd lost just like that. The South Emperor Courtyard's reputation had been utterly ruined. I'll challenge you! Before Jiangchen could walk down the arena, an upper-level Origin Realm youth from the South Emperor Courtyard stepped forward. He wanted to save some face for the South Emperor courtyard. However, Jiangchen smiled and said mockingly, "I've already accepted 3 challenges. According to the rules, I've advanced." As he spoke, Jiangchen waved at the group of people from the South Emperor courtyard and said with a smile, "See you in the 3rd round. You're pissing me off." At this moment, the group of people from the South Emperor courtyard was depressed. Not only had they lost face, but they'd also been bullied. However, the rules of the 4 Directions ranking tournament were fixed. No one could change them. Jiangchen had accepted 3 challenges and won all of them. He had indeed advanced. Now, Jiangchen didn't have to fight in the 2nd round. "Xinjiang, where did you learn from?" After returning to his seat, Yi Changfeng walked over and asked with a frown. "The Skybridge Temple. I've told you before," Jiangchen said. "Bull**T. I've already sent people to investigate. There's no such thing as the Skybridge Temple in this world," young Lord Luo said coldly. "You're lying through your teeth. Some sects rarely appear in the world. Most people don't even know about them," Jiangchen said. Since he was going to show off anyway, he might as well keep it up. "Is the Black River very strong? Does it have a deep foundation? Compared to the Skybridge Temple, the Black River is just an ant," Jiangchen said disdainfully. "An ant still wants the Plenilun? Wants to explore the light and mystery of the Plenilun? What a joke!" Young Lord Luo was stunned when he heard this, as if he was shocked by Jiangchen's words. After all, there were some sects on the godless continent that rarely appeared in the world. Very few people in the world knew about them. However, those sects did exist. Only the most powerful sects knew about them. Although the Black River was strong, it couldn't be considered a top sect. Could it be that this kid is really from a hidden sect? Young Lord Luo frowned. He thought to himself that he should ask his cousin when he returned. Chapter 64. The enmity between young Lord Luo and Jiangchen could be said to be getting deeper and deeper from the beginning until now. Although the 2 people did not thoroughly fight, both held a breath in their hearts. Of course, to Jiangchen, who was young Lord Luo. It was just that Jiangchen did not want to make a move. But young Lord Luo refused to give up. He was the young lord of the 800 miles Black River. From the moment he was born, he was high and mighty. Since young, he was used to being arrogant and domineering. How could he be willing to suffer a little grievance? Although young Lord Luo was expelled from the 800 miles Black River now, if something really happened to young Lord Luo, would the 800 miles Black River not care about him? "Boss, you look at that person, he keeps looking at the 2 of us." Right at this moment, Jianglu frowned and looked over at South Emperor Court's side. He saw that beside Jiumozan, there was a short fatty in his 40s or 50s who was currently sizing up Jiangchen and Jianglu. Saw. Jiangchen nodded and said, then laughed bitterly. "Discovered." "Discovered what?" Jianglu asked in puzzlement. "There's killing intent in his eyes," Jiangchen said. "Although I made South Emperor Court lose a lot of face in the 4-way ranking competition this time, it's also impossible for South Emperor Court to have killing intent on me because of this." Jianglu was not stupid either. The moment he heard this, his body immediately tensed up. He even understood that the so-called discovered was Jiangchen's identity was exposed. "But he looks like an elder of South Emperor Court," Jianglu muttered. "How can an elder of South Emperor Court be an assassin of Dark Pavilion? Dark Pavilion's assassins are spread all over the godless continent. Normally, they all live their own lives and have their own identities. But if something happens, such as receiving a bounty, these people will secretly take action and serve the Dark Pavilion," Jiangchen explained. Speaking up to here, Jiangchen's heart was much more relaxed. Previously, he was still worried about his identity being exposed. But now, his identity was already exposed. Jiangchen was not worried about anything instead. As the saying goes, counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Originally, I wanted to keep a low profile and get into the top 3. I don't want first place. Jiangchen said softly. But since my identity has been exposed, what's the point of hiding? The first place of the Four Directions ranking tournament is mine. After that, Jiangchen didn't say anything. He sat in his seat and waited for the third match to begin. However, by the time the second match ended, it was already late at night. The South Emperor Courtyard announced that they would rest for the night and continued the next morning. After arranging the accommodation, Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu lived in the same room. During this period, Elder Lu came to visit Jiang Chen. He had high hopes for Jiang Chen. After all, Jiang Chen was the only one from the northern Ming courtyard who had advanced to the third round. Go out for a while. In the middle of the night, Jiang Chen sensed something and asked Jiang Lu to leave the room. Not long after, Jiang Chen got up and looked out of the window. His eyes flashed coldly. Tonight is the best chance to kill me. After tonight, when the sun rises, there will be more people. By then, it will be difficult for you to kill me. As soon as he finished speaking, a black shadow flew in from outside the window. Then, the short and fat elder from the South Emperor Courtyard stood in front of Jiang Chen. Kid, you're quite vigilant. The short and fat man said. If it wasn't for the little fatty beside you, I wouldn't have recognized you. The secret pavilion has been looking for you for so long. I didn't expect you to disguise yourself and still dare to participate in the Four Directions ranking tournament. So what? Do you think you can kill me? Jiang Chen said mockingly. You're just a low-level Tao realm cultivator. What can you do to me? It's enough to kill you. The short and fat man's eyes flickered coldly. His body shuddered as streams of spiritual energy burst out. Many people want to kill me, but in the end I'm still here. Jiang Chen said softly as he tapped the air with his finger. Instantly, runes appeared in the room. In an instant, the runes gathered and formed a formation, trapping the short and fat man inside it. Formation Master! You know how to set up formations! The short and fat man exclaimed with a hint of astonishment in his eyes. In the Four Directions ranking tournament, Jiang Chen had used barriers and talismans, but no one knew he knew how to set up formations. I knew you were coming, so I specially set up a formation, Jiang Chen said with a smile. Enjoy it. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, streams of horrifying spiritual energy exploded within the array. They were like countless sharp blades that pierced through the array. There were also streams of flames and lightning that turned into thousands of creatures. Amidst their roars, they drowned the short and fat man. In the end, the space trembled and ripples appeared, crushing the short and fat man into pieces. Not even a trace of powder was left. Are assassins nowadays so weak? Jiang Chen curled his lips. After putting away the formation, he called Jiang Lu in. Boss, how is it? Jiang Lu asked. He glanced around the room and found no traces of fighting. Even the tables, chairs, and bed were intact. Dead? Jiang Chen said. This time, if you and Bai Fingyu didn't follow me, I wouldn't have been exposed. As soon as he said this, Jiang Lu felt awkward. He already knew that Jiang Chen's identity was exposed because of his relationship with Bai Fingyu. After all, Jiang Chen had disguised himself, and even changed his aura. Moreover, in the Four Directions ranking tournament, he didn't use the heavenly dance of brightness and darkness or the 9 words of battle. He had done it so secretly but was still discovered. Naturally, the problem lay with Jiang Lu and Bai Fingyu. These two people came out in broad daylight and didn't disguise themselves at all. From now on, you have to think thrice before you act, Jiang Chen said. Fortunately, this time I discovered it in time and set up the formation. Otherwise, it would be difficult for me to block a Dao Realm assassin. Boss, I know I was wrong, Jiang Lu said weakly. He couldn't help but feel ashamed. Hearing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. He patted Jiang Lu's shoulder and said, Reflect on your mistakes. You'll be punished to cultivate the Heavenly Earth Tyrant Body technique. You're not allowed to sleep tonight. Ah? That's it. Jiang Lu was stunned. He didn't expect Jiang Chen's so-called punishment to be so simple. For cultivators, not to mention one night, it didn't matter even if they didn't sleep for 10 days or half a month. Moreover, Jianglu had planned to cultivate overnight. As such, Jiang Chen's punishment was really, time passed slowly. Soon, it was the morning of the second day. As soon as the sky brightened, everyone got up and went to the martial arts field again and sat down. After the first 2 matches, there were only 10 people left for the third match. Among them, the South Emperor Courtyard took up 5 spots, the West Snow Courtyard 3, the East Li Courtyard 2, and the North Ming Courtyard. Naturally, there was only Jiang Chen. The third match, mixed battle, Jiao Mozhan said. Then, the 3 arenas merged into one and the 10 contestants entered one after another. Chapter 65. After all, the first 2 battles were one-on-one battles. The third battle was a free-for-all battle. After this battle, the rankings of the 4 directions ranking competition would basically be decided. However, there would also be some accidents. After all, it was a free-for-all battle. If they joined forces and attacked the strongest team, the outcome would be unpredictable. Of course, in the previous 4 directions ranking competition, some people had been surrounded and attacked, but in the end, they had secured the first place with their domineering strength. However, before today's free-for-all battle began, everyone already knew that the North Ming Yard was probably going to be eliminated. The North Ming Yard had the least number of people participating in the free-for-all battle. Only Jiang Chun was participating, and his cultivation level was the lowest among them. Therefore, the contestants were not stupid. Naturally, they would get rid of the weakest team with the least number of people first. Get off the stage yourself? How can one person fight against us? Get off the stage yourself so that you won't suffer any physical pain. The people from the top 3 schools spoke one after another. They did not want to waste their energy on Jiang Chen. They needed to conserve their strength, as they still had to fight individually. All of you, come at me together. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. He already knew that he would be surrounded and was mentally prepared. As soon as he said that, the people present could not help but have a strange expression. A trace of fear flashed across some people's eyes. After all, some of the techniques that Jiang Chen had displayed earlier were indeed extraordinary. They were worried that Jiang Chen might have other techniques that he had not used yet. Some people looked at him with contempt, thinking that Jiang Chen's strength was not enough to contend with them. Since you don't want to get off the stage yourself, then I'll help you. Hit him first. After a few breaths, the free-for-all battle finally began. As the disciples from the West Snow Yard spoke, 3 disciples from the West Snow Yard dashed toward Jiang Chen. As for the people from the South Emperor Yard and the East Li Yard, they stood aside and did not intend to intervene. In their eyes, no matter how many tricks Jiang Chen had up his sleeves, in the face of the 3 experts from the West Snow Academy, no matter how Jiang Chen resisted, he was doomed. However, when the 3 from the West Snow Garden rushed to the front of Jiang Chen, a pair of flame-like wings spread out from Jiang Chen's back. With a flap of his wings, Jiang Chen floated up into the air, his hands continuously forming seals. Come down if you have the guts! Do you think you can escape from our attacks just because you're in the sky? The 3 from the West Snow Academy shouted angrily. Since they had not reached the Dao realm, they could not fly in the air. However, they had mastered martial arts techniques that were enough to strike down Jiang Chen from a distance. The moment I flew into the sky, your fates were already decided, Jiang Chen said coldly as his eyes flickered coldly. At the same time, Jiang Chen's hands were moving constantly. He was making hand gestures one after another. Obscure runes had appeared around him at some point. These symbols were pulsing and flickering with divine light. There was even an obscure aura that pervaded the air. He's condensing talismans. The power of the talismans can be strong or weak, and can even punish saints. Don't let him continue to condense talismans. At that instant, the people of the South Emperor Yard and the East Li Yard were shocked and intimidated. They could tell that the talismans that Jiang Chen was condensing this time were extraordinary. Otherwise, a normal talisman would not need so many runes. It's too late, Jiang Chen said with a smile. He clapped his hands together, and hundreds of runes gathered around him, forming a giant hexagram talisman. The talisman rose into the sky, accompanied by the force of the heavens. Following it was a pitch-black tribulation cloud that covered 1,000 meters. Tribulation cloud! What kind of talisman is this kid condensing? It's able to attract the tribulation cloud. Everyone was shocked. Few people in the world were not afraid of the heavenly tribulation. If they were not careful, they could even die. Condense a lotus and rise to the clouds of the 9 heavens. Descend the pain of the heavens and endless lightning, Jiangchen said softly as he pressed his palms against the sky. In the blink of an eye, the tribulation cloud became violent, and purple thunderbolts that were as thick as buckets fell down, drowning the entire arena in an instant. Boom! Boom! At that moment, everyone could only hear the sound of thunder. They could only see the arena shaking, but they did not know what was going on in the arena. Occasionally, a few cries of agony would be heard through the rumbling of the thunder. Kid! Stop it! They're going to die! The elders of the top 3 schools looked gloomy, and they kept yelling. Although the participants today were not the strongest of their respective schools, nor were they inner-yard disciples, they would definitely achieve great things in the future if they were trained well. And these people were the hope of the top 3 schools. If these people all died under the heavenly tribulation, the loss of the top 3 schools would be immeasurable. Even Elder Lu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He looked at Jiangchen in the sky and said, "Put it away. If they really die, it won't end well." Jiangchen smiled when he heard that. He looked around and said, "I can put it away, but I have a question. Put it away quickly. If you have a question, ask quickly. Ask quickly. Put the talisman away if you ask," the elders said hurriedly. In the face of the heavenly tribulation, even they did not dare to go in to save people. They were afraid that they would be implicated by the heavenly tribulation. Who won this battle? Jiangchen asked. Of course you won. Of course. My disciples are probably going to be struck to death. Who will fight with you? You won. Put the talisman away quickly. Everyone urged. Only the elders of the South Emperor Courtyard had ugly expressions on their faces. He had originally thought that the first place of the 4 Directions ranking tournament was already firmly in his hands. But who would have thought that Jiangchen was such a great person? The 3rd Battle Royale, Jiangchen wins. After thinking for a while, Jiao Mozhan could not resist the urging of the elders of the other schools. He could only announce that Jiangchen had won. Jiangchen smiled when he heard that. He snapped his fingers and the talisman disappeared instantly. Then, the heavenly tribulation clouds in the sky turned into nothingness. Gasp! They were struck to this extent. At this moment, when the crowd saw the appearance of the group of disciples in the ring, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They saw a group of people lying on the ground. Black smoke was coming out of their bodies and they were twitching all over. There were even a few people who had already fainted. Their injuries were extremely serious. Let's rest for a day. The finals will begin tomorrow, Jiao Mozhan said. When he said that, Jiangchen's eyes narrowed and a ray of cold light shot out from them. He had asked who would win this battle previously. What he meant was who would be the first place of the 4 Directions ranking competition. This was a problem that everyone present was well aware of. However, Jiangchen did not expect that Jiao Mozhan would be so shameless. Moreover, according to the rules, the finals had to be held today and could not be delayed until tomorrow. Chapter 66. Do you think you can change the rules of the 4 Directions ranking competition? Jiangchen said coldly. Either you go straight to the finals or you surrender. You have no right to speak here. Jiao Mozhan shouted angrily. The disciples of the North Bright Hall are so rude. Do you lack discipline? Oh, so this is the so-called South Emperor Hall? Jiangchen curled his lips and suddenly grinned. Fine, let them rest for a night. We'll fight again tomorrow. However, Jiangchen couldn't help but ask. So, how many people were eliminated in this mixed fight? Who will be participating in the finals tomorrow? The disciples of the West Snow Hall are too injured to fight again. Even if they rest for a night, they won't be able to fight tomorrow. The elder of the West Snow Hall looked gloomy and was unwilling to give up. The West Snow Hall forfeits tomorrow's finals. In the end, the elder of the West Snow Hall chose to forfeit for the sake of his disciples. Then, the elder of the East Lee Hall also decided to forfeit the finals. Only the elders of the South Emperor Hall did not speak. It seemed that they did not want to give up the finals. In that case, I'll be fighting with 5 people from the South Emperor Hall tomorrow? Jiangchen said mockingly. I hope they'll be able to fight with me after a day's rest. This year's 4 Directions ranking competition was held in the South Emperor Hall, and was hosted by the South Emperor Hall. Before the representatives of the 4 Directions Divine Halls arrived, Jiao Shan had the final say in the 4 Directions ranking competition. Jiangchen did not object to this. After all, these people had been struck by the heavenly tribulation for so long. They were lucky to have survived. How could their injuries be healed after a day's rest? Moreover, even if their injuries were healed, so what? If they could be struck once, they could be struck a second time. Qinjiang, why don't we give up? At this moment, in Jiang Chen's room, Elder Lu was frowning. He looked worried, as if he had a lot on his mind. Why? Jiang Chen asked. The South Emperor Courtyard is the strongest among the 4 courtyards, and it is valued by the 4 Directions Divine Courtyards. If you are in the limelight this time and take first place, the South Emperor Courtyard will definitely lose face, and they will definitely not let it go. Elder Lu said in a deep voice. At that time, it might implicate the North Bright Courtyard. Are you scared? Or is Baiming Hall afraid? Jiangchen narrowed his eyes and said, Even I am not afraid. What are you afraid of? What was Baiming Courtyard afraid of? They are all branches of the 4 cardinal divine courtyards. What can the South Emperor Courtyard do to the North Bright Courtyard? Jiangchen was right. No matter how deep the enmity between the 4 branches was, it was impossible for them to really fight. At most, there would be some friction between them. In that case, why should Elder Lu be worried? Just listen to me and give up. Elder Lu's expression froze, and his voice became colder as he said, As an elder of the Northern Ming Hall, I'm ordering you to forfeit tomorrow's final match. You? Ordering me? Jiangchen chuckled, and then a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, Who do you think you are? Get lost. You. Are you trying to rebel? Elder Lu was furious. He had never met an outer courtyard disciple who dared to speak to him like that. However, when he remembered that the first elder of the inner courtyard seemed to value Jiangchen, Elder Lu did not dare to do anything to Jiangchen. He glared fiercely at Jiangchen, then turned and left. Jiang Lu saw everything from the side. Under his simple and honest appearance, his mind was very active. Boss, did Elder Lu accept some benefits from the South Emperor Courtyard? Jiang Lu asked. Nonsense, if I didn't accept any benefits, how could I forfeit the final match? Jiangchen said softly. In the final match tomorrow, Jiangchen was sure that the 5 disciples of the South Emperor Courtyard would not be able to recover. At that time, as long as he fought in the arena, he would be invincible and undefeated. Everyone knew that. It could be said that before the final match even began, everyone knew who the first place belonged to. Since that was the case, Elder Lu wanted Jiangchen to forfeit the final match. It was impossible to say that Elder Lu was afraid of the South Emperor Courtyard. It was even more impossible to say that the North Ming Courtyard was afraid of the South Emperor Courtyard. The only possibility was that Elder Lu had been bribed. Then what should we do? If we don't do as Elder Lu says, it will be very difficult for us to survive in the North Ming Courtyard in the future, Jiang Lu said worriedly. Jiangchen couldn't help but roll his eyes at Jiang Lu's words, as if he expected better from Jiang Lu. He patted Jiang Lu's head and said unhappily, You're going to stay in the Northern Ming Courtyard, aren't you? This kind of broken place, even if you beg me to come, I have to consider it. After I get the divine spiritual cultivator's inheritance, I'll leave. Who would continue to stay? Jiangchen said. But won't something happen tomorrow? Jiang Lu asked worriedly. One had to know that the South Emperor Courtyard was willing to do anything for the first place of the Four Directions ranking competition. Previously, they had even sent out a Dao Realm cultivator to pretend to be an Origin Realm cultivator. Since they were already so shameless, the South Emperor Courtyard might do something even more shameless. As long as I'm still standing, no one will be able to challenge me, Jiangchen said in a serious voice. After that, Jiangchen sat down cross-legged. Instead of cultivating, he continued to organize his thoughts. In his memory, there were thousands of cultivation techniques and martial skills, as well as formations, talismans, weapon refinement techniques, and other methods. After being reborn, it had been 3,000 years. These things were rusty. Therefore, Jiangchen needed to straighten out and review them. After all, these things would be useful in the future. Something big has happened. Elder Su of the South Emperor Courtyard went missing last night. The South Emperor Courtyard suspects that Qingjiang killed him. In the evening, the entire South Emperor Courtyard was in an uproar. Everyone was talking about what had happened to Elder Su. Jiang Chen's room was crowded with people at the moment. Elder Su? That shorty? Jiang Chen murmured. That was the assassin of the secret pavilion, who had been killed by his formation. However, Jiang Chen had been very discreet about what he had done, so no one should have noticed it. A cornered dog would jump over a wall and jump over a wall. It just so happened that it encountered such a thing, Jiang Chen said with a wry smile. It was a coincidence that they actually found me. I really did kill Elder Su. The South Emperor Courtyard was most likely trying to find an excuse to deal with Jiang Chen, so that Jiang Chen would not be qualified to enter the finals. However, no one would know that the South Emperor Courtyard had actually found the culprit this time. However, there was no way that Jiang Chen would admit it. Once he did, Jiang Chen would not be able to walk out of the South Emperor Courtyard alive. Qingjiang! Someone saw Elder Su entering your room late at night yesterday, is that true? Outside the room, Jiu Mozhan was leading a group of elders from the South Emperor Courtyard. His face was dark, and his eyes were cold. Jiangchen stood up and walked out of the room. He said mockingly, The elder of the South Emperor Courtyard is missing. How can you be sure that I killed him? Furthermore, he is an elder, and I am only a cultivator in the mental state. How can I kill him? Jiangchen retorted. Chapter 67. Jiu Mozhan fell silent. After all, they did not have any evidence. The most important thing was that they did not even find Elder Su's body. You're a big suspect. Now we'll imprison you and interrogate you. You can leave the day after tomorrow when the truth is out, Jiu Mozhan said. Upon hearing this, Jiangchen squinted his eyes. His look was ice-cold. Staring at Jiu Mozhan, he said in a cold voice, The day after tomorrow? Does that mean that I can't participate in the finals tomorrow? Humph! Jiu Mozhan snorted but did not say anything. After all, he was not confident enough. Then, a group of elders from the South Emperor Courtyard set up a wizardry barrier and array formation outside Jiangchen's room to imprison Jiangchen. Although I don't know what happened to Elder Su, I can use this to imprison this boy. In this way, you won't be able to participate in the finals tomorrow, and the first position will belong to my South Emperor Courtyard no matter what. Jiu Mozhan sneered endlessly in his heart, and then he flicked his sleeve and left with the group of elders. The South Emperor Courtyard did not know that Elder Su was killed by Jiangchen, but they deliberately came to find trouble with Jiangchen. They wanted to prevent Jiangchen from participating in the finals. At this moment, Jiangchen was standing outside the room with a smile on his face. He looked at the backs of Jiu Mozhan and the others and felt relieved. Could a mere array formation and a wizardry barrier imprison him? When Jiangchen was playing with array formations and wizardry barriers, Jiu Mozhan and the others were not even born yet. Boss, what should we do? Jiang Lu looked terrible because he knew that Elder Su was killed by Jiangchen. If this matter was blown out of proportion, Jiang Chen would not be able to get away with it. According to Jiang Lu's idea, it was better to follow Zhou Mo Shan and the others' wishes and let Jiang Chen give up the finals. When the finals were over, Jiang Chen could leave safely. Otherwise, if Jiang Chen did not agree and insisted on participating in the finals, Zhou Mo Shan and the others would definitely investigate Elder Su's death thoroughly. At that time, if something was found out, Jiang Chen would be in trouble. The crime of killing an elder of the South Imperial Academy was enough to take Jiang Chen's life. If I say that I killed Elder Su, who would believe me? No one will believe it, right? Jiang Chen whispered. With my strength, how could I possibly kill a Dao realm cultivator in the eyes of others? But I'm afraid of accidents, Jiang Lu said worriedly. Accident? What accident could there be? Elder Su was killed by the array formation, and not even a wisp of ash was left behind. Where did they get the evidence? Jiang Chen said with a smile. After saying that, Jiang Chen waved his hand and said, Spend the night in peace. Tomorrow, you will participate in the finals. Oh. Jiang Lu nodded. He had always agreed with Jiang Chen's decision. Time passed slowly. The sun set and the moon rose until dawn. The moment dawn broke, the people from the 4 great academies gathered in the martial arts field. The finals were about to begin. After a night of rest and recuperation, the 5 contestants of the South Imperial Academy had not recovered from their injuries. But at least they could move freely. Moreover, now that Jiang Chen was imprisoned, the first place of the 4 great academies naturally belonged to the South Imperial Academy. As a result, whether it was the 5 contestants or the people of the South Imperial Academy, they all had smiles on their faces. Sorry I'm late. However, at that moment, a voice drifted over from afar. The crowd looked back and saw Jiang Chen walking towards the martial arts field leisurely with a smile that was as gentle as a breeze. Under the morning sun, his figure emitted a faint layer of divine light. Vigorous blood energy flowed from his forehead. You! How did you get out? Who let you out? You are suspected of killing Elder Su, and you are imprisoned. How dare you come out without permission? At that moment, everyone exclaimed. Jiao Mozhan roared angrily, and waved his hand, about to send someone to capture Jiang Chen. What can mere formations and boundaries do to me? Jiang Chen squinted at Jiao Mozhan and said calmly. You said that I killed Elder Su, but where's the evidence? Could it be that the South Imperial Academy is framing me to disqualify me from the finals? If the people of the 4 great academies know about this, can you, Jiao Mozhan, bear the consequences? Jiang Chen said coldly. When these words came out, Zhou Mo Shan immediately shut up. He was afraid. If the people of the 4 great academies found out about his actions, he would definitely be severely punished. Even the Southern Emperor clan would be dragged into it. We'll let you participate in the finals first, and then we'll investigate slowly, Jiao Mozhan said coldly, and then announced that the finals would be delayed by half an hour. Why is it delayed? Jiang Chen asked. None of your business. Are you going to preside over the 4 great academies ranking tournament, or should I? Jiao Mozhan shouted angrily. After glaring at Jiang Chen, he waved at the 5 participating disciples of the South Imperial Academy. Then, Jiao Mozhan and the 5 disciples left. No one knew what they were going to do. Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu went to the seats of the North Ming Academy and sat down peacefully. However, Jiang Chen kept staring at Elder Lu from the corner of his eye. This guy was bribed by the South Imperial Academy, and when Jiao Mozhan brought people to imprison him, he did not even say a word. This is too much. Even Yi Chang Feng, Ji Kongmi, and the others looked at Elder Lu with contempt and disdain. What kind of bull-shastrous elder is this? You can't even protect your own disciple, young Master Luo said directly. He looked at Elder Lu with disdain and said mockingly, If you can't be an elder, then don't be an elder. Young Master Luo, you have to remember your current status. You're a disciple of the North Ming Academy. And I am an elder of the North Ming Academy, Elder Lu said angrily. So what? In terms of status, who do you think you are? I am the young master of the 800 miles Black River. Young Master Luo was also angry. Even if I am expelled, do you know the identity of my cousin? Elder Lu heard this and immediately lost his temper. After all, young Master Luo's cousin's status was frighteningly high. Even the dean of the North Ming Academy had to lower his head in front of young Master Luo's cousin. Although Qingjiang and I have a grudge, what you have done is even more despicable, young Master Luo said coldly. Then, he suddenly looked at Jiang Chen and said mockingly, Why don't you follow me? I can let bygones be bygones, and with my status and strength, I can protect you. Are you qualified to make me follow you? Jiang Chen curled his lips. Not just you, even the master of the 800 miles Black River is not qualified. You really don't know what's good for you. Young Master Luo was angry again. His face was red with anger. He pointed at Jiang Chen and said angrily, When we return to the North Ming Academy, I will teach you a lesson. Anytime. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. Half an hour later, Jiu Mozhan returned with the 5 disciples of the South Emperor Academy, and announced the start of the finals. Chapter 68. No one knew what Jiu Mozhan and the 5 disciples of the South Emperor Hall had done in half an instance's time. However, they were all wearing confident smiles on their faces. However, Jiang Chen stared at the 5 people seriously. The corners of his mouth twitched. He thought to himself that the South Emperor courtyard was really shameless. The others might not be able to notice the changes in the 5 participants, but it did not escape Jiang Chen's eyes. The 5 of them had disguised themselves. 5 different people, all of whom are Dao realm cultivators who have suppressed their cultivation. How shameless! Jiang Chen cursed in his heart. However, the ranking tournament of the 4 directions was held at the South Emperor Hall, and hosted by Jiu Mozhan. Even if Jiang Chen knew something was amiss, there was nothing he could do. Even if he told the truth, no one would believe him. Even if they did, the people from the other halls would pretend that they did not know anything. After all, the people from the other halls had already been eliminated. It was none of their business who came in first. There was no need for them to fall out with the South Emperor Hall for Jiang Chen. How nice! Jiang Chen murmured and went up to the ring with a dark expression. The final round of the tournament was a one-on-one battle with no breaks in between. Jiang Chen was the only participant from the North Ming Hall, thus he was the first to enter the ring. Kid, you're dead meat! Meanwhile, Jiang Chen's opponent went up to the ring. His eyes flickered with hostility. True Qi was floating around his body. A long saber was vibrating between his hands. Shut up! Jiang Chen murmured. Fiery wings appeared on his back as he tried to rise into the sky. However, he had already used the move, thus his opponent was on guard. As soon as the fiery wings appeared, his opponent threw a slap at Qi Nan. His true Qi burst out from his palm like thin strings. It was like a spider's web, falling down with a soft water aura. It extinguished Jiang Chen's flaming wings. He came prepared? Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. After landing on the ground, he stomped on the ground and charged out like a cheetah. Along the way, more and more clones appeared, and true energy erupted around him like flowers blooming in the air. Petty tricks! His opponent smiled disdainfully. With a flick of his finger, a saber glow spread out like a circle. Wherever the saber light passed, everything was shattered. Even Jiang Chen's body was attacked. Fortunately, Jiang Chen's physical body was extremely strong, and his true qi was even more abundant. After forcefully resisting this saber qi, he rushed in front of this person. The South Emperor courtyard really doesn't care about its reputation, Jiang Chen said coldly. True qi condensed in his palm, forming a vortex. Under the shocked gaze of the man, his palm landed on his chest. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, a vortex of true qi exploded, blasting the man's chest into a bloody mess. Even a few of his ribs were broken. Get lost! Jiang Chen shouted in a low voice. He kicked his opponent again and sent him flying. He fell outside the arena. What's going on? This kid is so strong? The people of the South Emperor Courtyard were stunned. They knew that their opponent was a Tao realm cultivator. Although his cultivation level was suppressed, his foundation was still there, and he was far from an ordinary cultivator. However, who would have thought that Jiang Chen would defeat his opponent so easily? He won't make it to the end. The first place of the 4 directions ranking competition belongs to the South Emperor Courtyard, Jiu Mozhan said coldly, but he was a little afraid. If a Tao realm cultivator was defeated by Jiang Chen so easily, what about the remaining 4 people? The outcome would probably be the same. At the thought of this, Jiu Mozhan could not help but look at one of the contestants. After giving him a look, the 2 of them left quietly. After a few breaths, Jiu Mozhan and the contestant returned. Both of them looked calm, but their eyes were full of confidence. Kid! Let's see what you can do this time! Jiu Mozhan sneered in his heart. He was confident that he would win this time. Meanwhile, Jiang Chen did not return to his seat after defeating his opponent. Instead, he stood in the arena and looked at Jiu Mozhan. He said, "There are still 4 contestants from the South Emperor Courtyard. Why don't you ask the strongest one to come out and fight with me? Whoever wins will be the first place." "Okay." Jiu Mozhan nodded. After all, as long as he defeated Jiang Chen, the first place would belong to the South Emperor Courtyard. Then, a young man with delicate features walked out from the remaining 4 people. He looked the same as Wang Ting. However, his aura and eyes were very different from Wang Teng's. Moreover, Jiang Chen could sense that this person's true cultivation level was at the intermediate level of the Tao realm. Interesting. Jiang Chen smiled, but he did not care. So what if his opponent was at the intermediate level of the Tao realm? After all, he had suppressed his cultivation level. After suppressing his cultivation level, his opponent was only at the upper level of the origin realm. As long as his opponent did not surpass the origin realm, Jiang Chen could fight him. No matter what tricks you played, they were all useless in front of absolute strength. "Kid, I know all your tricks. Let's see how you're going to fight me." The fake Wang Ting sneered. He raised his hand, and his palm was filled with true qi, mixed with a wisp of spiritual force. Tao realm cultivators were particular about transforming true qi into spiritual force. The power of a wisp of spiritual force was far greater than true qi. However, Jiang Chen was still fearless. So what if his opponent had spiritual force? Would he dare use it in front of so many people? At most, he would use a bit of his spiritual force. "Even I don't know how many tricks I have." Jiang Chen chuckled. "However, I can show you a few moves today." As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd saw true qi erupt from Jiang Chen's body, turning into a black mist. Black fog filled the air and spread out. In the blink of an eye, the entire arena was shrouded in black fog. The black mist narrowed its eyes like a dark sky. Even the elders of the various courtyards could not see what was happening in the arena. "Devil!" Suddenly, a terrified cry came from the fake Wang Ting in the arena. Then, the crowd heard a series of muffled sounds, and a roar that sounded like a devil from hell. Bang! After a few breaths, the fake Wang Ting flew out of the black mist and fell outside the arena. His body was covered with sword wounds. Even his dantian had been pierced. His cultivation was crippled. Furthermore, his eyes and expression were filled with fear, and he was trembling nonstop. "Devil! He's definitely a devil!" the fake Wang Ting muttered. His face was pale, as if he had seen something terrifying in the black mist. Buzz! At that moment, the black mist dissipated, and the crowd saw Jiang Chen standing in the arena. He stood tall and straight, and there were still wisps of black mist rising from his body. Drops of blood dripped from his hands. "His eyes are so scary! What is that? Demon God?" the crowd exclaimed because they saw a blood-red glow in Jiang Chen's eyes. Moreover, Jiang Chen's pupils turned pitch black. They were deep and bottomless, as if they were endless darkness. Even his hair was mixed with a black and red glow. Chapter 69. His hair fell all the way to his toes. Under the black and red light, he looked like a demon from hell. At the same time, some of the sharp-eyed people noticed that there was a layer of black scales on Jiang Chen's skin. They looked like dragon scales, emitting a demonic red light. However, these scales were disappearing so quickly that not many people saw them. The first place of the Four Directions ranking tournament is mine. At this moment, Jiang Chen looked at Jiao Mo Shan and said coldly, "What other tricks do you have up your sleeves? Demon cultivator! Kill him!" Jiao Mo Shan shouted angrily and pointed at Jiang Chen. "How dare you practice the demon cultivation method, which is not tolerated by the orthodox? Kill him!" When Jiang Chen heard this, he was stunned. He did not expect Jiao Mo Shan to be so shameless. However, Jiang Chen soon felt relieved. After all, Jiao Mo Shan had been so shameless from the beginning. It seemed that Jiao Mo Shan would do anything to get the first place of the Four Directions ranking tournament. "Kill him! Kill him!" Around them, the people of the South Emperor Courtyard shouted angrily, agreeing with Jiao Mo Shan's actions. On the other hand, young Lord Luo and the others from the North Ming Courtyard were furious. They looked at Elder Lu, hoping that he would stand up and protect Jiang Chen. Yi Changfeng said directly, "How do you know that Qinjiang practices the demon cultivation method? How can you be sure that he is a demon cultivator?" "That's right. Even if he practices the demon cultivation method, as long as he doesn't do anything evil, he is not a demon cultivator," Ji Kongmi echoed. "South Emperor Courtyard! Can't you afford to lose?" Even young Lord Luo could not help it. Although he had a grudge against Jiang Chen, he still stood on Jiang Chen's side. However, Elder Lu stood in the same spot, not moving an inch, not saying a word. It was as if Jiang Chen's life and death had nothing to do with him. His actions undoubtedly made many disciples of the North Ming Courtyard disappointed. Even Bai closed his eyes, feeling ashamed for Elder Lu. "Boss! Run!" Jiang Chen rushed out. His whole body was covered in a golden radiance, as he blocked in front of Jiang Chen. He had grown up with Jiang Chen and was exiled by the Qin Creek Jiang family together. They had gone through many hardships together. The relationship between them could be said to be one of life and death. As for Jiang Lu, he had recognized Jiang Chen as his boss since he was a child. Now that his boss was in trouble, as his little brother, he would naturally risk his life to save him. "What are you afraid of? A mere South Emperor Courtyard dares to touch me?" Jiang Chen, on the other hand, was very relaxed. He patted Jiang Lu's shoulder and said with a smile, "Just wait and watch a good show." "What do you mean?" Jiang Lu was puzzled, but his expression was still very nervous. The reason being that the elders of the South Emperor clan were all in the Dao realm and had surrounded them. Perhaps, in the next second, these people would attack. At that time, with the cultivation of Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu, they would be blasted into smithereens in an instant. "Let's see who dares!" However, at this moment, in the distant sky, a furious roar was heard. Then, an old man stepped on the snowflakes in the sky and flew in the air. Wherever he passed, the ground was covered in ice. The flowers, plants, and trees were like ice sculptures. An extremely cold aura filled the air. The clear sky was filled with wind and frost, as if winter had arrived. "Who is it? How dare you interfere with the affairs of the South Emperor Courtyard?" Jiao Mozhan said coldly, but a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. Because the cultivation of the person who came was too high, he could not see through him at all. "White Mountain Snow Sea, Bai Jiangye!" Bai Jiangye said coldly. In a few steps, he landed beside Jiang Chen. Then, Bai Jiangye did not even look at Jiao Mozhan. Instead, he took out a space ring with a smile and said respectfully, "Fellow cultivator, this is my granddaughter's tuition fee. Do you think it's enough?" "Oh?" Jiang Chen's eyes flashed. He seemed to have forgotten his situation and hurriedly took a look at the space ring. Jiang Chen immediately became excited. He patted Bai Jiangye's shoulder with satisfaction and said, "Not bad, not bad. 3 million supreme-grade spiritual stones is enough." Then, I hope you can teach my granddaughter more in the future, Bai Jianye said with a smile. Teach her more? Then, I might have to increase the tuition fee, Jiang Chen said seriously. You know that I don't have much ability. I just like to take in and teach disciples. Cheaper? Give me a discount? Bai Jianye wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and stared at Jiang Chen with a strange expression. He thought to himself, why is this kid so greedy? The crowd around them was already in a mess. A group of elders from the South Emperor courtyard surrounded Jiang Chen, but Jiang Chen was discussing the tuition fee with Bai Jianye. Did they really not care about the people from the South Emperor courtyard? In other words, they did not care about the South Emperor courtyard at all. Sure, but if you handle today's matter well, I'll give you a 20% discount, Jiang Chen said with a smile. He took the spatial ring and looked at Jiao Mo Shan. He said to Bai Jianye, who was next to him, I'll take his life. Okay. Bai Jianye nodded and raised his hand. A palm print burst out. The palm print looked ordinary, but it was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the palm print hit Jiao Mo Shan's body. Boom! Along with a loud explosion, the palm print exploded, and even Jiao Mo Shan collapsed. He exploded and died on the spot. Who is he? How dare he kill an elder of the South Emperor courtyard? Isn't he afraid of the revenge of the South Emperor courtyard? Isn't he afraid of the quadrangle divine courtyard? The surroundings were completely silent, but everyone's hearts were in turmoil. Although the four courtyards could not be compared to the top sects, they were supported by the quadrangle divine courtyard. Ordinary people would not dare to attack someone from the four courtyards, let alone an elder. Sir, don't you think you've gone too far? At this moment, a majestic and angry voice came from the inner courtyard of the South Emperor courtyard. Following it, a middle-aged man surrounded by the aura of the ecliptic path arrived in the sky. Greetings, Dean. Greetings, Dean. The people from the other three courtyards bowed when they saw this person. Only Jiang Chen, Jiang Lu, and Bai Jianye looked calm. What do you mean by going too far? Bai Jianye said casually. You've gone too far by trying to kill my granddaughter's master. But this is the South Emperor courtyard, a branch of the quadrangle divine courtyard. Dean Murongbei said in a deep voice. So what? You've killed him. Do you still want to take revenge? Bai Jianye said mockingly. Come on, you can try. Murongbei's face turned gloomy when he heard that. Because even with his cultivation, he was actually unable to see through Bai Jianye's cultivation. Sir, the emissary of the quadrangle divine courtyard is about to arrive at the South Emperor courtyard. Why don't you talk to him? Murongbei raised his eyebrows and said. He thought that the quadrangle divine courtyard would be enough to intimidate Bai Jianye. However, what surprised everyone was that Bai Jianye revealed a disdainful smile after hearing this. He smiled and said, All right, I'll wait for him. Chapter 70. Murongbei was afraid of Bai Jianye's strength. However, his elder was killed in front of so many people, which was a great humiliation to him. If this matter was not resolved properly, who would dare to enter the South Emperor courtyard in the future? If they couldn't even protect their own elders, those who wanted to enter the South Emperor courtyard would naturally despise them. Fellow cultivator, how is my granddaughter these days? Did she relapse? Bai Jianye turned around and asked worriedly, completely ignoring Murongbei. She's fine. She's in the North Ming courtyard. You can visit her when you have time, Jiang Chen said. Jiang Chen's eyes lit up as he spoke. He put his hand on Bai Jianye's shoulder and said with a smile, Let's talk about the remaining tuition fees first. Bai Jianye was stunned for a moment after hearing this. His mind was in a mess and he couldn't say anything for a long time. He had just paid 3 million top-level spirit stones. Why did he have to pay tuition fees again? Besides, didn't they agree that he would get a discount for killing Jiao Mozhan? Why didn't they mention the discount now? Let's talk about it later. Bai Jianye suddenly looked up and looked into the distance. A carriage was coming from afar. 3 inferior chelants were emitting blazing flames. A large flag was hanging behind the carriage. The word square was engraved on it. The emissary of the square divine courtyard is here. Humph! At this moment, the people of the South Emperor courtyard were relieved. They thought that the matter would be resolved as long as the emissary of the square divine courtyard was here. However, the carriage stopped halfway before it entered the South Emperor courtyard. Soon after, a youngster walked out from the carriage. With a respectful expression on his face, he flew down and landed in front of Bai Jiangye. "Uncle, why are you here?" the young man asked respectfully. "I'm here to see this fellow cultivator, who is your cousin's master." Bai Jiangye pointed at Jiang Chen and said mockingly, "What's wrong? Are you the emissary sent by the square divine courtyard?" "Yes, all the mentors are busy, so they sent me here." The young man nodded and said, "Uncle, wait a moment. Let me first understand the situation of this year's 4 Directions ranking tournament. Then I'll come and chat with you." After that, the young man turned to Murong Bei and asked, "Who are the top 3? "Sir, the top 3 are from the South Emperor courtyard," Murong Bei said. "Bullshit! Xinjiang from the Northern Ming courtyard is ranked first among the top 3. Young Master Luo's temper flared up. He immediately rebuked. "How shameless!" "Oh? What do you mean?" The young man frowned and said in a deep voice, "Tell me what's going on." When Murong Bei heard this, he could not help but look at young Lord Luo with a fierce look in his eyes. Then, he explained, "The first place is indeed Xinjiang from the Northern Ming Hall. However, he is a member of the Demon Path and is not accepted by the Righteous Path. The elder of the Southern Emperor Hall, Jiao Mozhan, disqualified him. However, this evil creature called someone over and killed Jiao Mozhan," Murong Bei said in a deep voice. "The evil creature he mentioned is your cousin's master," Bai Jiangye suddenly said with a playful look. "And the person he called over is me." When the young man heard this, his expression instantly became strange. Although he did not return to the White Emperor city often, he had heard that Bai Fengyu had a master outside and had successfully transformed into a yin body, becoming the holy yin body. Now, everyone in the White Emperor city wanted to meet Bai Fengyu's master, and they were very grateful to Jiangchen. Now, Murong Bei had said that Jiangchen was a member of the Demon Path. If this was true, did it mean that Bai Fengyu had also joined the Demon Path? "How dare you! How could Cousin Fengyu's master be a member of the Demon Path?" At this moment, the young man's face darkened and he shouted angrily. "Also, do you know who this person is?" "This? I don't know." When Murong Bei saw the young man's expression, he could not help but tremble. He knew that today's matter was not going to be good. "His surname is Bai, and his name is Yi. He lives in the White Emperor city of the Tseng Mountain Snow Sea. The current governor of the White Emperor city, Bai Di, is his son," the young man said seriously. When the young man said this, everyone present was instantly shocked. No one had expected that someone from a top sect like the White Emperor city would appear here. Moreover, this person was Emperor Bai's father, the former governor of the White Emperor city. With this identity, no matter where he went, everyone had to be respectful to him. To put it bluntly, even if Bai Jiangye overturned the South Emperor courtyard, the Sifeng Divine courtyards would not say a word. At this moment, Murong Bei was extremely shocked and did not know what to do. He could not even speak clearly. At the same time, the young man waved his hand and said, "Who are the contestants in the finals?" It's us." Several contestants from the South Emperor courtyard stood up, trembling, and their eyes were full of fear. As for the youth, when he saw the contestants, his eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of fierceness. "Dao Realm cultivators? How can they participate in the 4 Directions ranking competition? Since when did the rules set by the Sifeng Divine courtyards change? Murong Bei, how dare you!" The young man shouted angrily, and raised his hand to form a palm print. However, the young man did not attack. After all, the young man was the dean of the South Emperor courtyard. Even if the South Emperor courtyard was in the wrong, the higher-ups of the Sifeng divine courtyards should decide the punishment. This is all Jiao Mashan's doing. It has nothing to do with me, Murong Bei said hurriedly. Now that Jiao Mozhan is dead, the South Emperor Courtyard will also admit our mistake. I hope that the emissary can forgive us. Let's wait for the news from the Sifeng divine courtyards, the young man said coldly. Then the young man turned around and said to Jiangqin, Greetings, senior. Senior? Isn't that a bit too senior? Everyone was shocked. The emissary of the Sifeng divine courtyards, whose cultivation had surpassed the Dao realm, had called Jiangqin senior. However, when they thought about it carefully, it made sense. After all, the young man's cousin was Jiangqin's disciple. In terms of seniority, Jiangqin was naturally more senior than the young man. Don't call me that, Jiangqin said with a smile. Young man, you have such a cultivation at such a young age. If you receive my guidance, your achievements will be even greater. Are you interested in becoming my disciple? Jiangqin asked. When these words came out, Bai Jiangye, who was at the side, shook his head at this youngster. He was deeply afraid that his nephew would go astray. Most people would not be able to afford the exorbitant tuition fees. Senior, you must be joking. I already have a master, so I can't be your disciple, the young man said with a smile. Then, he reached out and handed a token and a silk scroll to Jiangqin. The winner of the Sifeng ranking competition can directly enter the Sifeng divine courtyards to cultivate. This silk scroll is the inheritance of the divine spiritual cultivator, which has been rumored recently, the young man said. The divine spiritual cultivator issued a divine decree not long ago. The kings of the four directions will inherit the divine spiritual cultivator. Chapter 71. A godly decree to choose a successor? Jiangqin suddenly had a bad feeling when he heard this. He raised his head and looked at the sky. It was as if he could see the vast 9 heavens above the boundless sky. If you don't die, you won't inherit the legacy. Divine Spiritual One. Are you about to die? Jiangqin sighed. He knew the personalities and actions of those deities. If they weren't about to die, they wouldn't be able to pass on their legacy. So, now that the Divine Spiritual One had specially issued a godly decree to pass on his legacy, the only possibility was that something had happened to the Divine Spiritual One in the 9 heavens. Moreover, it was a matter of life and death. All the deities were unique. They were unique in the 3,000 worlds. Therefore, these deities wouldn't give their everything to others unless they had no other choice. Only when they were about to die would they pass on their legacy so that their descendants could help them complete their unfinished business. No wonder there was a rumor that the Divine Spiritual One's legacy had appeared. Jiangqin was silent. Suddenly, he saw a dazzling star in the sky. Like a shooting star, it left a long arc of starlight in the sky before finally disappearing. Seeing a shooting star in broad daylight, what was going on? Jiangqin was the only one who knew that a god had died. When this young man passed the Divine Spiritual One's legacy to Jiangqin, Jiangqin had already sensed it. This was because this silk book had a trace of the Divine Spiritual One's spiritual imprint. Now, the legacy had been found. The Divine Spiritual One was above the 9 heavens, as if his last trace of will had dissipated, and he had finally fallen. I, Bai Xiaolin, represent the 4 cardinal divine houses and the will of the Divine Spiritual One to pass on the legacy to you. The glory of the Divine Spiritual One will forever cover the 4 cardinal divine houses. The emissary of the 4 cardinal divine houses, Bai Xiaolin's expression was extremely solemn. Everyone wanted the Divine Spiritual One's legacy. However, due to the godly decree of the Divine Spiritual One, no one dared to touch it, and no one dared to take it for themselves. Only by following the godly decree and passing the legacy to the person who deserved it could they do so. The 4 cardinal divine houses were originally created by the Divine Spiritual One. In the future, I will return this legacy to the 4 cardinal divine houses, Jiangqin said solemnly. Thank you? Bai Xiaolin nodded. He then turned around and said to Bai Jiangye respectfully, Uncle, I still have something to do in the Four Cardinal Divine Courtyard. I have to report what the South Emperor Courtyard did, so I won't be able to catch up with you. I'll take my leave first. Go, come back to White Emperor City more often. Bai Jiangye waved his hand. After Bai Xiaolin left, Jiang Chun looked at Murong Bei mockingly and asked, How do you feel now? When Murong Bei heard this, his expression became gloomy, and he began to panic. If the Four Directions Divine Institutes investigated the matter of the Four Directions ranking tournament, Murong Bei would not be able to escape responsibility. Fellow Taoist, Jiuemo Shan is the one behind all this. I've been living in seclusion in the inner court all year round, so I don't know anything about this. Murong Bei blurted out. Cultivator, please understand. Is it possible to talk to Envoy Bai Xiaolin? What does it have to do with me? Jiang Chun curled his lips. You asked for it. After saying this, Jiang Chun returned to his seat. His eyes flickered coldly as he stared at Elder Lu and said coldly, You'll have to explain yourself to the North Ming courtyard when you get back. Elder Lu opened his mouth, but he did not know what to say. After all, everyone had witnessed what he had done in the Four Directions ranking tournament. Even if the people of the North Ming courtyard did not mention it, the people of the other courtyards would definitely mention it. If the higher-ups and elders of the North Ming courtyard heard about it, or even the dean of the North Ming courtyard, it would be the end of Elder Lu's life. I'll send you back, Bai Jiangye said with a smile. He was very polite to Jiang Qin. After all, his granddaughter still needed Jiang Qin to take care of her in the future. Then, escorted by Bai Jiangye, Jiang Qin, and Jiang Lu went back to the Northern Ming yard in half a day. As soon as they returned, Bai Jiangye hurried into the inner courtyard to visit his granddaughter. As for Jiang Qin, he entered his wooden hut and opened the silk scroll. The moment the scroll was opened, a beam of light shot out. Then, the figure of the divine spiritual practitioner appeared from the scroll. It was a wisp of his remnant consciousness. I knew it. How could the great divine King Tianqin die so easily? The divine spiritual practitioner smiled as if he had already expected that the person who had inherited his legacy would be Jiang Qin. Are you still there? Jiang Chen's eyes flashed with sadness. It had been 3,000 years. He did not know how his family and friends were doing. What were the over-gods who had once betrayed him doing now? I'm no longer here. The divine spiritual practitioner smiled. Life and death are up to fate. My life has come to an end. If I die, I die. You're an over-god after all. How can you just die like this? Jiang Qin frowned. Were you killed? Yes. The divine spiritual practitioner didn't hide anything, he said straightforwardly. The 36 over-gods who betrayed you started a war against the continent of the 9 clouds after you died. Now, the war has lasted for 3,000 years and it's finally over. The divine spiritual practitioner sighed. When Jiang Qin heard that, he sighed deeply. Jiang Qin knew that he had lost the war. The 36 over-gods who betrayed you now rule the continent of the 9 clouds. The people who were on your side have either died or fled. Many people have also chosen to live in seclusion. They no longer get involved in the affairs of the continent of the 9 clouds, said the divine spiritual practitioner. What about you? Why didn't you live in seclusion? Why did you get involved? Asked Jiang Qin. Back in the days, Jiang Qin and the divine spiritual practitioner had fought, but in the end, the divine spiritual practitioner had chosen to follow Jiang Qin. Therefore, the divine spiritual practitioner was on Jiang Qin's side. So, when Jiang Qin died, the divine spiritual practitioner could have chosen to live in seclusion. He wouldn't have died. Your country in the world, your position in the continent of the 9 clouds, and your position as a god. You're not here anymore. Of course, someone has to protect it, said the divine spiritual practitioner with a smile. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to protect it. What do I need you to protect? I just want you to be safe. I just want to see you again when I return to the continent of the 9 clouds, shouted Jiang Qin furiously. He felt even sadder. Not so long ago, He had been high and mighty, surrounded by a group of overgods. He had controlled the continent of the 9 clouds and looked down on the world. But now, those overgods had betrayed him. Some had died, some had fled. Everything seemed like the autumn leaves, sweeping away all the light, leaving behind only desolation and sorrow. There are still people waiting for you. Those who are still alive are all waiting for you to return, said the divine spiritual practitioner. Pass on my legacy. Even though I'm dead, as long as my legacy remains, my will never be destroyed. I can't fight with you in the continent of the 9 clouds anymore. Let my successor fight with you in the future. Conquer the continent of the 9 clouds and look down on the world. Chapter 72. In the end, the divine sense user had died and vanished into thin air. This last wisp of consciousness had drifted away with the wind. Jiangchen held a silk scroll in his hand and his heart was filled with sorrow. Those who had once fought alongside him had all left one by one. Even the divine sense user, a powerful master god, had fallen. One could imagine how intense the battle above the 9th heaven was. Apart from the divine sense user, how many others had died? Jiangchen was unwilling to raise his head and look at the sky. He was afraid that he would see a meteor fall. That was the fall of a god. Wait for me! Wait for my return! After a long time, Jiangchen calmed down and opened the silk scroll to comprehend the inheritance of the divine sense user. He did not want the complete inheritance of the divine sense user. He only wanted the cultivation technique related to the mind state. For Jiangchen, it was very easy to comprehend a cultivation technique and cultivate a martial technique. With just a few glances, Jiangchen had already comprehended it. Then, Jiangchen began to cultivate. Cultivating day and night, Jiangchen's mental strength improved by leaps and bounds. 10 days later, when Bai Jiangye arrived, Jiangchen stopped cultivating. Upper-level mind state! Bai Jiangye could not help but exclaim when he saw Jiangchen. After all, 10 days ago, Jiangchen was only at the lower level of the mind state. To break through from the lower level to the upper level in 10 days, this speed was not something an ordinary person could do. Even those geniuses could not do it. What's the matter? Jiangchen asked. I have to go back to White Emperor City, Bai Jiangye said. I don't know when I can come back this time. From now on I'll have to rely on you to take care of my granddaughter. Of course. Jiangchen nodded. Then he frowned and asked, What about the tuition fee? Bai Jiangye's face fell when he heard that. He had given Jiangchen quite a lot of spiritual stones in total. However, this guy still didn't seem satisfied. We're all on the same side. There's no need to talk about money. Bai Jiangye chuckled. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared from his original position. He left? Jiangchen was dumbfounded. Bai Jiangye ran away as soon as he asked for the tuition fee. Could it be that the huge White Emperor City couldn't even afford the tuition fees? You eat my food, wear my clothes, and live at my place. Is it too much for me to charge you a little more? Jiangchen pursed his lips. However, Jiangchen was now considered very rich. In his infinite space ring, there were a few million top-grade spiritual stones. These spirit stones were enough for him to use for a period of time. Now that I've obtained the inheritance of a divine spiritual practitioner, there's no point in continuing to stay in the northern Ming courtyard, Jiangchen said softly. He then got up and prepared to leave with Jiang Lu and Bai Fengyu. However, just as he walked out of the room, a cold light suddenly flew towards his face. If not for the fact that Jiangchen's spiritual power was strong and his senses were stronger than ordinary people's, he probably wouldn't have been able to react in time. Bang! At that moment, Jiangchen threw out a punch. His genuine chi was like a torrent that swept across and shattered the cold light. Immediately after, Jiangchen took a few steps back and looked into the distance. About 10 meters away from Jiangchen, a black figure was staring at Jiangchen. The secret pavilion? You're quite bold to come to the northern Ming courtyard to kill me, Jiangchen said coldly. Since the secret pavilion has accepted your bounty, they will definitely take your life. They won't rest until you're dead. The black figure's voice was emotionless. It was as cold as frost, and it was bone-chilling. When Jiang Chen heard that, he shrugged his shoulders and said, "As long as you have the ability, you can come and take my life at any time." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Chen took a step forward. He was like a phantom. In an instant, Jiang Chen rushed to the front of the black figure. A sword radiance appeared in his palm and he slashed at the black figure. Humph! However, the black figure was very strong. After a cold snort, his body turned into a black fog and he disappeared. It was obvious that the assassin did not dare to make a big fuss in the northern Ming courtyard after his attack failed, and he chose to escape. "It doesn't feel good to be targeted by the secret pavilion," Jiang Chen sighed. Although he had disguised himself, his identity had been exposed during the Four Directions ranking competition. Now, the people from the secret pavilion had already chased him to the northern Ming courtyard. The northern Ming courtyard did not have any powerful protective array. If Jiang Chen stayed there, he would not be safe at all. "Mo Xingtian, I wonder how much information he's gotten. He said it would only take 3 days, but it's been almost half a month," Jiang Chen thought to himself. Then Jiang Chen made up his mind. He used the contract between him and Mo Xingtian as a medium to communicate through holy awareness. "How's the investigation?" "I've returned to the Devil Sect and it's been half a month," Jiang Chen said. "Master, there's a little trouble in the Devil Sect. I'll return to your side once I'm done," Mo Xingtian said respectfully. "I've found the branch of the secret pavilion. It's in Qingyun Town, Black Cloud Inn." "Oh? It's right under your nose?" Jiang Chen was stunned. He did not expect that the branch of the secret pavilion in Qingyun Town would be in Qingyun Town. Jiang Chen had been to Qingyun Town several times and had seen the Black Cloud Inn. However, if Mo Xingtian had not investigated, Jiang Chen would not have guessed that the Black Cloud Inn was the branch of the secret pavilion. "What's the cultivation of the strongest person in the branch?" Jiang Chen asked. "Master, you're not really planning to destroy the branch, are you?" Mo Xingtian was stunned and hurriedly dissuaded him. "Destroying the branch is equivalent to fighting the secret pavilion to the death. If the secret pavilion finds out about this and traces it back to you, I'm afraid not many people in this world can protect you." Jiang Chen smiled in a frivolous manner. He didn't continue speaking. He had his own plans. Then, Jiang Chen got up and found Jiang Lu. He sent a voice transmission to Bai Fingyu and asked him to prepare to leave immediately. "Xinjiang, you went into seclusion to cultivate as soon as you came back. Are you hiding from me?" Suddenly, young Lord Luo's voice came from not far away. He had a provocative look on his face as his true qi surged. His blood qi was vigorous and his cultivation had broken through to the origin realm. "Hiding from you? Do you have the right to make me hide from you?" Jiang Chen sneered and brought Jiang Lu to the entrance of Baiming Hall. He and Bai Fingyu had agreed to meet at the entrance and return to Qianzuan's sect together. "Isn't it time to settle the score between you and me?" young Lord Luo said in a cold voice. He took a step forward and stood in front of Jiang Chen. At this moment, Jiang Chen's eyes turned cold. He said coldly, "I'm not going to argue with you. Do you think I'm afraid of you? I don't know if you were afraid of me in the past. But after today, I'll be a nightmare that will be branded in your heart forever." Young Lord Luo raised his chin proudly. Jiang Chen smiled. Waving his hand at Jiang Lu, who was behind him, he said, "Jiang Lu, I'll leave him to you. Don't kill him." Chapter 73. "Oh." Jiang Lu nodded in a seemingly honest manner. Then, true energy erupted from his body. His skin was suffused with a layer of reddish gold radiance, as if his entire body was made of gold. Boom! He took a step forward and charged toward young Lord Luo like a primordial bull. His feet landed on the ground with a heavy thud, as if a great bell had been rung. "Get out of my sight! My opponent today is Xinjiang, not an ant like you!" young Lord Luo said disdainfully and pushed out a palm. His true energy was like a wave that spread toward Jianglu. For some reason, young Lord Luo's cultivation had skyrocketed recently. He was already arrogant to begin with. After his cultivation skyrocketed, his arrogance grew even more uncontrollable. Now, he didn't even put Jianglu in his eyes. However, Jianglu, who looked simple and honest on the outside, taught young Lord Luo a lesson in the next second. Boom! Young Lord Luo's sky full of true energy slammed into Jianglu's body like a tidal wave. However, Jianglu was like a boulder, his entire body emitting reddish gold radiance. No matter how the true energy bombarded his body, he didn't move an inch. Then, Jianglu's arm shook and a fist swept across. The true energy wave in front of him crumbled like paper and dissipated into nothingness. You can't even beat me, and you want to fight my boss? Jianglu said and leaped up like a great rock. When he landed, he suddenly exerted force in his legs and ruthlessly stomped on young Master Luo's shoulders as if he was 1,000 pounds falling. Crack! Following a crisp sound, young Lord Luo's face was pale and filled with pain. His shoulder blades had been crushed by Jianglu's feet. Even the true energy in his body had been scattered and couldn't be gathered in a short period of time. He had lost the ability to fight. If the boss hadn't reminded me not to beat you to death, you'd be a dead man now, Jianglu said softly and glared at young Lord Luo. In the future, don't come looking for trouble with my boss. You're not even as good as me. Young Lord Luo was furious when he heard this. He couldn't believe that with his cultivation of the lower level of the origin realm, he'd been crushed by Jianglu, a mere thought realm cultivator. Furthermore, he had been defeated so thoroughly. Since you've won, don't open your mouth to mock me. What's the point of that? At this moment, a young man walked over from afar. He was dressed in white and had a crown on his head. There was a folding fan in his hand that was gently swaying, and a painting of mountains and rivers unfolded in the middle of the folding fan. When young Master Luo saw this person, a hint of excitement appeared in his eyes. He shouted, "Cousin!" The young man nodded gently and didn't say much. He walked directly in front of Jianglu. "Jianglu, come back!" Jiangchen narrowed his eyes. He could feel a sense of danger from this young man. "It's my cousin's fault. However, since he is my cousin, then as his cousin, I naturally have to stand up for him when he is injured." The young man spoke softly with a smile that was like a spring breeze on his face. He seemed to be harmless to humans and animals. "You want to fight? Just come." Jiangchen took a step forward and stared at him. However, he was puzzled. Who exactly was young Master Luo's cousin? At such a young age, his cultivation had reached the upper level of the Dao realm. In the entire solitary North City, there might not be a second person like him. Moreover, the aura that was vaguely emitted from this young man was even stronger than Bai Fingyu's. "Now I won't fight with you." The young man smiled and shook his head. "I don't like to take advantage of others. You can suppress your cultivation level and fight with me." Jiangchen raised his eyebrows. "Otherwise, just stand there and don't speak. Even if I suppress my cultivation level and have the same cultivation level as you, in my eyes, I am bullying you." The young man shook his head again. His voice was light as if he didn't take Jiangchen seriously from the beginning. However, when these words fell into Jianglu's ears, it was like a raging fire that ignited the anger in his heart. "If our cultivation levels are the same, boss can suppress you with one finger," Jianglu shouted angrily. Hearing this, Jiangchen waved his hand and frowned. "Jianglu, wait for me at the mountain gate." Jianglu didn't say much and listened to Jiangchen. However, he was worried about Jiangchen. Jianglu knew Jiangchen's personality. If they were to meet, Jiangchen wouldn't easily back off. "Cousin, take revenge for me," young Master Luo said coldly. "I have long disliked this kid. Ever since I met him in Xingyan town, I wanted to teach him a lesson. Him? He isn't worth my time." Young Master Luo's cousin smiled and waved the fan in his hand. "I am the young master of the Bank of the World, young Master Luo's cousin, young Master Chen." And? The young master of the Bank of the World? Young Lord Qin? Jiang Chun was taken aback. He couldn't help but ask, "Your surname is Chun? Young Master Ming?" "Yes." Young Master Chen nodded. At this moment, Jiang Chun finally understood why the Bank of the World didn't care when young Master Luo pretended to be the young master of the Bank of the World. So there was such a relationship. What made Jiang Chun speechless was how the seniors of these two people named them. One was young Master Luo and the other was young Master Chen. One was arrogant and arrogant. One was confident like he was invincible. "Are you going to fight?" "If you aren't, I will leave," Jiang Chun said softly. "If we fight, I will use my mental realm to fight with you. There is no need for you to suppress your realm. I said that you aren't worth my time." Young Master Chen laughed. "I am just like this. If you really want to fight with me, then, when your cultivation catches up, come to Burning Heaven Academy to find me." Burning Heaven Academy? Jiang Chun frowned. He felt that Burning Heaven Academy sounded familiar. Soon, Jiang Chun recalled. Wasn't this the academy that the god of fire had founded on the godless continent before he had become a god? Godless continent, ranked 7th out of the top 10 academies. Young Master Chen said, "I know that you are about to enter Four-Way God Academy, which is close to my Burning Heaven Academy. At that time, I will wait for you." With that, young Master Chen turned around and said to young Master Luo, "Let's go. Since the divine spiritual being's inheritance has been obtained, it is useless for us to stay." "But cousin, just let it go." Young Master Luo was stunned. He thought that young Master Chen would take revenge for him, but he didn't think that he would do nothing. "I have my own confidence and pride," young Master Chen said softly. "In front of me, where does your confidence come from? What is that so-called pride?" Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. Since young Lord Chen had shown up, he had been extremely confident. He even belittled Jiang Chen as if he were as weak as an ant. Jiang Chen didn't want to argue with him, but young Master Chen's appearance and words made him unable to hold it in. Chapter 74. Young Lord Chen frowned after hearing Jiang Chen's words. He was confident and aloof, but he had his own temper too. At this moment, he turned around and stared at Jiang Chen. He asked, "What do you have to fight me?" "Let's try," Jiang Chen said. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Chen made a mudra with his hands. A blood-red rune appeared. The rune was like a small pagoda that was imprinted between his eyebrows. It was enchanting and had a unique domineering aura. "Forbidden art, all lives equal." Buzz. In an instant, the rune between Jiang Chen's eyebrows emitted a radiance. It looked like a red glow that shrouded young Lord Chen. In just 3 breaths' time, Jiang Chen's cultivation skyrocketed to the upper Dao realm. "Forbidden art?" Young Lord Chen's eyes flickered with astonishment. He did not expect Jiang Chen to know such a thing. The so-called forbidden art was a martial skill that forbade the cultivator from using it. This kind of martial skill was quite strange and possessed an unfathomable power. However, as it was too imperious and even violated the heavenly Tao, the martial skill was forbidden. "Fight!" Jiang Chen shouted loudly. Under the effect of the forbidden method, all lives equal, his cultivation level was as high as young Lord Chen's. However, it would not last long. He had to end the battle as soon as possible. "So what if you're using the forbidden art? You're still no match for me." Young Lord Chen raised his brows and threw a punch forward. A fierce flame burst out. On the way, the flame gathered and turned into a red 9-headed lion. It let out a series of roars and lunged at Jiang Chen. "Forbidden art, 3,000 ras hens!" Jiang Chen did not dare to be careless. After all, his cultivation had been improved by using the forbidden art. It was not his own. If he did not use his full strength, Jiang Chen would surely lose the battle. Therefore, Jiang Chen had gone all out from the beginning. Bang! Bang! At this moment, the 3,000 ras hens were executed. Tru Chi soared into the sky and gates that looked like they were made of bluestone fell from the sky. It was as if the gates of heaven had opened. One after another, the gates landed on the 9-headed lion. Following a series of explosions, flames surged and the lion's roar shook the sky. However, the gates were still shattered by the falling ras hens. At the same time, the doors slammed down, shaking the ground and shaking young Lord Chen's heart. His eyes widened as he saw the gates flying in his direction, and backed away. At the same time, a golden lion appeared behind him. As expected, you have already awakened your doctrine's soul, Jiang Chen said softly, while a grave look flashed in his eyes. After entering the Tao realm, the Tru Chi would transform into spiritual force. It was a qualitative transformation. At the same time, some people, blessed by the heavens and blessed by the heavens, would awaken their Tao souls when their Tru Chi was converted into spiritual energy. There were all kinds of Tao souls, all of them were different, and had endless uses. Those who had a Tao of the ras hens were much stronger than ordinary people. It could be said that those who had a Tao of the ras hens were the chosen ones and were known as destiny cultivators. If you hadn't been using forbidden skills, I wouldn't even need to use my Tao of the ras hens to deal with you, young Lord Chen said coldly. He was also afraid of Jiang Chen's forbidden skills. Roar! After he said that, the golden lion behind young Lord Chen let out an earth-shattering roar. The spiritual force was like sound waves that spread out in an invisible manner. The sound waves were like ripples as they collided with the layers of Rashomon. Bang! Bang! At this moment, between Jiang Chen and young Lord Chen, the sound waves and the ras hens collapsed. True Chi and spiritual force were like tsunamis that kept spreading out wantonly. So what if you have a Tao of the ras hens? Jiang Chen said seriously. You have a Tao of the ras hens, but I have a forbidden skill. Buzz. After saying that, Jiang Chen formed a seal again. His 10 fingers danced like butterflies. At the same time, an obscure aura spread out from Jiang Chen's body. How dare you! Young Lord Chen could no longer remain calm. He had used his Tao of the ras hens to block Jiang Chen's forbidden skill. If Jiang Chen used another forbidden skill, he was afraid that he would not be able to withstand it. With a furious roar, young Lord Chen punched out. Spiritual force surged on the fist radiance, and a golden lion head roared. The fist radiance rushed forward and the lion's roar shook the heavens and the earth. The ras hens could not block the fist radiance. However, Jiang Chen acted as if he hadn't seen the dreadful radiance of the fist. He kept making mudra with his hands. When the radiance of the fist was about to reach his face, his pupils emitted brilliant starlight. His eyes had turned silvery white, and his pupils were like a magatama that was spinning rapidly. The might of the galaxy! In an instant, Jiang Chen snarled in anger. A dreadful pressure was emitted from his pupils. Moreover, behind him, a river of stars appeared. It was as gorgeous as the starry sky. Boom! Following the appearance of the suppression, the seemingly unparalleled fist radiance was shattered into pieces. At the same time, as Jiang Chen opened his eyes, the silver light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. The Milky Way behind him seemed to have come alive, and it dashed toward young Lord Chen like a silver dragon. On the way, the ras hens were shattered and young Lord Chen's attack turned into nothing in front of the silver dragon. Bang! Almost in an instant, the silver dragon rushed forward and bombarded young Lord Chen's body. Puff! Young Lord Chen's face turned pale and blood spurted out from his mouth. Even the Tao of the golden lion behind him was forced back into his body. His body flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Blood splattered along the way. Cousin! Young Lord Luo exclaimed and widened his eyes. He could not believe that young Lord Chen, who was so powerful in his eyes, had been defeated. Puff! However, at this moment, Jiang Chen's face also turned pale. Blood spurted out of his mouth, and he fell onto the ground weakly. Jiang Chen's body and soul were exhausted after using so many forbidden techniques consecutively. Now, any random person could take his life. I've won in the end! Young Lord Chen, who had fallen to the ground, climbed to his feet with great difficulty. His body was trembling, but he did not conceal the pride in his eyes. His face was covered in blood, but he smiled at Jiang Chen, who had fallen to the ground, and asked, "Can you still stand up?" Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows when he heard this. The true qi in his body turned into 2 chains and bound his feet. Following this, the chains rose into the sky and lifted Jiang Chen into the air. "I can't stand up, but I'm above you." Jiang Chen was still lying on the ground, but he was lying in the air. He looked down at young Lord Chen with a hint of mockery in his eyes and said, "Standing doesn't mean that you've won, and falling doesn't mean that you've lost. At least I'm above you right now." Young Lord Chen was naturally furious when he heard this. However, after being hit by the silver dragon, the spiritual power in his body had dissipated and he could not even use his Tao soul. Now young Lord Chen could only stand. Other than that, it was difficult for him to even move a finger. On the other hand, although Jiang Chen was lying down, he was above young Lord Chen after all. Moreover, since Jiang Chen could use his true qi, it meant that he could still make a move. Was there a need to talk about the outcome of the battle? Chapter 75. Young Lord Chen had been defeated and his expression was gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. In his eyes there was a trace of surprise, shock, and a trace of killing intent. "You're dead!" Suddenly, a cold voice came from afar. Then, a dagger flew towards Jiang Chen like a poisonous snake. "It's over." Jiang Chen closed his eyes. He knew that the assassin from the secret pavilion had made his move. In his current condition, although he could use his true qi, his body was too weak. There was no way he could block the assassin from the secret pavilion. "How dare you!" However, at that moment, Bai Fengyu came from the sky. She pushed out her delicate palm and a layer of frost appeared. In the air, an extremely cold aura filled the air, and gusts of cold wind blew past. It was as if the entire space was going to be frozen by the cold. Ding dong! In the next moment, there was a crisp sound and an ice crystal mirror was formed in front of Jiang Chen. After the dagger hit the ice crystal mirror, a cold light burst out and suddenly exploded. There was even a poisonous fog that spread out. "Secret pavilion! I'll remember you!" Jiang Chen's face was pale and there was no sign of blood in it. As the poisonous gas entered his body, Jiang Chen's blood was slowly withering like a yellow flower. Even his bones, flesh, and blood were shriveling. Although the dagger did not hurt him, the poisonous fog was too insidious. Even Jiang Chen was not prepared for it. "You're dead!" The assassin who was hiding in the dark sneered and then went silent. Obviously, he was sure that Jiang Chen was dead and chose to leave. At that moment, Bai Fengyu rushed over. Her beautiful face was filled with worry. "Master, how are you?" Bai Fengyu asked. Her eyes were red and she blamed herself. "It's all my fault. If I had come earlier, this would not have happened. Help me back to the sect." Jiang Chen closed his eyes and his voice was very weak. He was clear about his condition. If he did not expel the poison in time, he would die. "This matter started because of you too." Bai Fengyu supported Jiang Chen and flew over young Lord Luo and young Lord Chen. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He said in a cold voice, "If anything happens to him, the White Sovereign City won't mind starting a war with the Bank of the World. White Emperor City. Baidi's daughter, Bai Fengyu." Young Lord Chen had seen Bai Fengyu before, but he didn't expect that someone of Bai Fengyu's status would actually come to such a small place. Furthermore, she had even acknowledged a person who was younger than her as her master. "Boss?" A few breaths later, when Bai Fengyu brought Jiang Chen to the mountain gate, Jiang Lu hurriedly rushed over. "It's fine. Let's go back first," Jiang Chen whispered. The poison in his body was spreading like countless ants, gnawing away at his essence, energy, and even his flesh and bones. "What kind of place do you think my northern Ming courtyard is? You think you can come and go as you please?" However, Before Jiang Qin and the rest could leave, Elder Lu brought a group of people and rushed out, surrounding Jiang Qin and the rest. You are disciples of Northern Ming Courtyard. Without my permission, you can't leave! Elder Lu shouted angrily. You think my Northern Ming Courtyard has no rules? Scram! Killing intent appeared in Bai Fingyu's beautiful eyes. She stared at Elder Lu and said coldly, If you dare to stop me, I will exterminate you. Exterminate? Elder Lu was shocked. How could he not know what Bai Fingyu meant by exterminate? She wasn't just exterminating Elder Lu, she was exterminating the entire Northern Ming Courtyard. With White Emperor City's strength and foundation, it was indeed easy for them to exterminate Northern Ming Courtyard. However, Elder Lu didn't believe that White Emperor City would go to war and exterminate Northern Ming Courtyard just because of Jiang Qin. Furthermore, Northern Ming Courtyard was a branch of the Sifeng God Courtyard, so White Emperor City wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Thinking of this, Elder Lu's confidence was boosted. He waved to the people beside him and said, Take them down! Jiang Lu, bring Master back first. Leave this to me. Bai Fingyu's eyes narrowed. After handing Jiang Chen to Jiang Lu, she turned around. Her cold eyes were filled with a layer of ice crystals, and a layer of frost appeared on her beautiful face. She slowly raised her hand, and the spiritual energy in her body surged. With a wave of her delicate hand, frost covered the surroundings. Thousand Illusions Technique, Ice Summoning! Accompanied by a furious shout, the frost shattered and rose into the sky. In an instant, icicles fell from the sky. It was like a rainstorm of icicles, accompanied by surging spiritual energy, enveloping the entire mountain gate of Northern Ming Courtyard. Elder Lu and the rest were extremely shocked. They fled to the back, and a few of them went around Bai Fingyu, wanting to chase after Jiang Chen. Stop! Bai Fingyu said sternly. With a point of her finger, a layer of frost appeared on the bodies of those who chased after Bai Fingyu. As the frost condensed, the cold air entered their bodies, and a gust of extreme yin energy exploded. In just a few breaths, those people turned into ice sculptures and were completely frozen. At the same time, the rain of icicles did not stop. There seemed to be an endless amount of icicles falling and bombarding the mountain gate of Northern Ming Courtyard. As for Elder Lu and the rest, they had already retreated to the mountain gate. The group of people joined forces to support a shield of vital energy, and only then did they manage to block the icicles that filled the sky. However, it was impossible for them to get out. If you attack again, don't blame Bai Di City for attacking you, Bai Fingyu said coldly, and her beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent. After sweeping her gaze across Elder Lu and the rest, she turned around and flew into the distance. Elder Lu, should we chase after her? Someone asked. How do we chase after her? Elder Lu's face darkened. That little girl is very powerful. Even if we join forces, we might not be her match. Then let the elders of the inner yard chase after her? Someone suggested. The elders of the inner yard have a high cultivation level. A little girl is naturally easy to deal with. Inner yard? Elder Lu frowned. When the inner yard was mentioned, he felt a little guilty. Previously, his actions in the Four Directions ranking tournament had not reached the ears of the elders of the inner yard. If they did, his days would be very difficult. Now, Elder Lu could not wait to avoid the elders of the inner yard. How could he take the initiative to look for them? Elder Lu, go to the disciplinary hall by yourself. Suddenly, the voice of the first elder of the inner yard rang in everyone's ears. When Elder Lu heard that, his face fell completely, and his heart fell into an abyss. He knew that the first elder of the inner yard had been paying attention to the situation here. Moreover, what he had done in the Four Directions ranking tournament was most likely known by now. Now Elder Lu would have to face the torture and punishment of the disciplinary hall. It was not certain whether he could survive it. It's all because of Xinjiang. If not for him, I would not have ended up in this state. Elder Lu was full of resentment, but he did not dare to disobey the orders of the first elder of the inner yard. He could only pray that he could survive this punishment. If he did, Elder Lu swore in his heart that he would not let the matter rest. Chapter 76. The departure of Jiangchun and the rest did not mean that they had left the northern Ming courtyard. After all, the protective array of the northern Ming courtyard was too weak and could not stop the assassins from the secret pavilion from entering. At this moment, Bai Fengyu caught up with Jiangchun. She carried him on her shoulder and soared into the sky. She could see that Jiangchun's injuries were extremely serious, especially the poison in his body. If it was not removed in time, he would lose his life. After half a day, Bai Fengyu brought Jiangchun back to the Qianzuan sect. "Help me to the grand hall of the sect leader." Jiangchun was very weak. His blood and qi seemed to have dried up. His flesh and bones had shrunk by a large amount. If this continued, even if a true god descended, he would not be able to save Jiangchun's life. "I'll get you some elixirs," Bai Fengyu said anxiously. After helping Jiangchun to the sect leader's throne, she hurriedly left. The moment Jiangchun sat on the sect leader's throne, his originally tense heart finally relaxed. This was because the sect leader's throne was created before he became a true god. It was created using the 10,000 years cold snow and the vermilion bird's blood. The 10,000 years cold snow could seal all things. The vermilion bird's blood could burn all things. When these two things were combined, it could be said that yin and yang intersected. It had the same effect as the power of yin and yang. Now, Jiangchun sat on the throne. Two streams of yin and yang swirled around him. The poison in his body was slowly disappearing under the influence of these two streams of qi. As the saying went, yin and yang gave birth to all things and could also transform all things into nothing. No matter how fierce the poison in his body was, it could not stop the yin and yang qi from dissolving it. Of course, compared to the real yin and yang, the 10,000 years cold snow and the vermilion bird's blood were relatively weaker. However, it was more than enough to dispel the poison. Half a day later, Bai Fengyu brought some antidote pills. She did not know what kind of poison Jiangchun was suffering from. Hence, she asked a group of alchemists to quickly refine more than 10 antidote pills. However, when she arrived in front of Jiangchun, she saw Jiangchun smiling at her. What are you laughing at? Quickly consume the detoxification pill. Although I don't know if it can cure the poison," Bai Fengyu said worriedly. "Poison? It's detoxified. I'll be fine after a few days of rest," Jiangchun said with a smile. "If such a small poison could kill me, I wouldn't be cured?" Bai Fengyu was astonished. Half a day ago, Jiangchun was still in a half-dead state. How could the poison be cured after half a day? However, thinking about how Jiangchun had always been so mysterious, no one could see through him. Now, Bai Fengyu wasn't surprised by the sudden detoxification. "That person, Elder Lu, is really too much. If you're left in the northern Ming courtyard, I'm afraid." Bai Fengyu's face darkened. If not for the fact that she was in a hurry to send Jiangchun back, she wouldn't have given up. Although she kept saying that she was a lady, in reality, Bai Fengyu's temper wasn't good. It was only in front of Jiangchun that she restrained herself a little and was a little more obedient. "They're just cats and dogs. No need to bother about them." Jiangchun smiled and said, "All right, I'm fine. You go and do your thing." "Are you really fine?" Bai Fengyu frowned and said, "No, I have to stay and take care of you. I'm talking to you with a smile and you still have a face? You don't even listen to your master?" Jiangchun glared. Bai Fengyu immediately lost her temper when she heard that. After looking at Jiangchun with a bitter face, she pouted and left the sect master's hall while looking back 3 times with every step. Not long after Bai Fengyu left, Mo Xingtian returned to Qianzuan's sect and came in front of Jiangchun. "Master, you're not really going to destroy the secret pavilion's branch hall, right?" Mo Xingtian asked. "The secret pavilion's branch hall isn't so easy to destroy. Moreover, if it's really destroyed, can Qianzuan's sect stop the secret pavilion? It's not like I'm going to destroy it openly," Jiangchun said softly. "The secret pavilion likes to assassinate and do things in the dark. Can I do the same?" "Then you mean," Mo Xingtian asked, "destroy it secretly? But do we have the strength to destroy their branch hall?" Jiang Chen felt awkward when he heard that. After all, Jiang Chen's current cultivation was really not high. Moreover, even if it was just a branch hall of the secret pavilion, it would not be so easy to destroy it. There would definitely be experts in the branch hall, and there might even be experts who had surpassed the Dao realm. Why do I have to do it personally? Jiang Chen said. Then, he got up and walked toward the pill refinery room. Mo Xingtian was confused and followed Jiang Chen to the pill refinery room. Tong Sang, you've been in Qianzuan's sect for so long. Do you have a lot of elixirs stored in the pill refinery room? Jiang Chen asked directly after finding Tong Sang in the pill refinery room. Yes, Tong Sang said smilingly. We have nothing to do every day. Apart from comprehending the booklet you gave us, the rest of the time is spent refining elixirs. Oh. Jiang Chen nodded. His eyes flickered as he said, Take these elixirs out and recruit people outside. Ah? What are you planning to do? Tong Sang was astounded. If I tell you to do it, do it. Jiang Chen's eyes glittered. Remember, I only want people above the Dao realm. Don't let anyone know that I'm the one who did it. Got it. Tong Sang nodded. He immediately took all the elixirs and left Qianzuan's sect in a hurry. Of course, before leaving, Jiang Chen personally altered Tong Sang's appearance and aura. Following this, Jiang Chen found Lu Shan. Take some people with you to the Azure Cloud Town. Deploy a tactical formation around the Black Cloud hostel secretly. Surround the whole hostel, Jiang Chen said directly. Black Cloud Inn? Why? Do you have a grudge against the Black Cloud Inn? Lu Shan asked. It's not just enmity, my life was almost taken away by them, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. I'll help you disguise yourselves later. Be careful when you set up the formation. Don't let anyone see you. By the way, I'll draw you a formation map. Just follow the instructions on the map and set up the formation. Lu Shan's heart skipped a beat upon hearing this. He never thought that Jiang Chen's life would almost be taken by the Black Cloud Inn. If that was the case, it was time for him to take revenge. If Master dies, where are we going to find the map and learn how to set up formations? Lu Shan murmured. He immediately made up his mind that he had to complete the task that Jiang Chen had given him. Following this, Jiang Chen finished drawing the formation map and disguised Lu Shan and the others, before asking them to head to Qinyan Town. Will this work? What if the news gets out or the secret pavilion finds out? Mo Xingtian frowned. What are you worried about? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Now we have other things to do. What is it? Mo Xingtian asked. Revenge. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. The people who went to the secret pavilion to post the bounty are none other than the Alliance Conference, 8 Paths Sect, and Star Sword Sect. Do you think I'll let these 3 sects go when I even want to destroy the secret pavilion's branch? Chapter 77. Jiang Chen, 8 Paths Sect, Star Sword Sect, and the Alliance were well aware of who was behind the bounty. Now that Jiang Chen had begun his counterattack, how could these 3 sects let him go? Among these 3 sects, only Star Sword Sect is slightly stronger. The Alliance and 8 Paths Sect are just SOSO. Mo Xingtian said with a hint of contempt in his eyes. Mo Xingtian was the great elder of the Demon Sect. Compared to the Demon Sect, these 3 sects were naturally much weaker. It was reasonable for him to look down on these 3 sections. However, Jiang Qing did not dare to be careless. The current Qianzuan sect's foundation was not very deep, and its strength was not very strong. It would take some time to deal with these 3 sections. As the great elder of the Demon Sect, you can go to the Demon Sect and call some people over. Is that okay? Jiang Chen asked. This is a little troublesome. Mo Xingtian frowned, seemingly reluctant. After all, if the great elder of the Demon Sect was known to be working for someone else and becoming someone else's servant, Mo Xingtian would be embarrassed. This is the Sunset Demon God's inheritance. Jiang Chen glanced at Mo Xingtian from the corner of his eyes and patted him on the shoulder, saying, Now, can you go to the demon sect and call for help? The Sunset Demon God's inheritance. Mo Xingtian was excited. He took the silk book that recorded the Sunset Demon God's inheritance and nodded, saying, I'm the great elder of the demon sect. It won't be difficult for me to call a few people over. Go, the faster the better, and the stronger the better, Jiangchen said. Mo Xingtian then left, preparing to go to the demon sect to call for help. Jiangchen, on the other hand, had nothing to do. He returned to the sect leader's great hall, sat on the throne, and continued to cultivate. The mental state was the cultivation of mind power. The stronger one's mind power was, the more convenient it would be to use many techniques. For example, as long as one's mind power was strong enough, they could instantly condense talismans, tame beasts, and create barriers. Previously, Jiang Chen's mental strength wasn't strong enough. When he condensed the talisman, he still needed to use the combination of hand seals to cast it. But now, with Jiang Chen's mental strength, ordinary talismans could be condensed with a thought. There was no need for a hand seal. Most importantly, the strength of one's spiritual energy was directly related to whether one could awaken a stronger Tao soul after breaking through to the Tao realm. The Tao soul was born from man, bestowed by the heavens, and it was hidden by the side of the grand Tao. Only those with strong mind power would have a glimmer of hope to sense the Tao soul and awaken it. Jiangchen had done his research and found that everyone had a Tao soul. But the key was whether or not he could awaken it. For example, the successors of the major forces and top sects all had Tao souls. Why was that? This was because all the top sects knew that everyone had a Tao soul. Therefore, when grooming successors, they would pay attention to the cultivation of spiritual power. My Tao spirit, it should be fine even if it doesn't awaken. Jiangchen suddenly thought of his own Tao spirit. That Tao spirit, it was not worth mentioning. Anyway, Jiangchen really did not think highly of it. Once, there was a joke about Jiangchen among the deities. Some deities had once used Jiangchen's Tao spirit as a joke. They said that if they fought with Jiangchen, they could defeat Jiangchen with a Tao spirit. Thus, it was obvious that Jiangchen's Tao spirit was really useless. Back then, if Jiangchen's Tao spirit was slightly useful, perhaps he would not have died when he was besieged by the 36 master gods. Sigh, it's better than nothing. Jiangchen smiled bitterly. As time passed, Jiangchen's spiritual energy became stronger and stronger. Although he was still at the upper level of the Tao realm, the strength of his spiritual energy was comparable to that of a Tao realm cultivator. Divine spiritual cultivator, how did you figure out such a cultivation method to cultivate spiritual energy? One day later, Jiangchen reached the most critical moment of his cultivation. He sighed. Divine spiritual cultivators were indeed geniuses. One must know that when an ordinary person cultivated spiritual energy, they would condense a spiritual seed in their mind. As they cultivated, the spiritual seed would gradually grow like a flower, sprouting, blooming, and bearing fruit. However, there was another cultivation method in the legacy of a divine spiritual cultivator. When the spiritual seed sprouted and grew until it blossomed and bore fruit, an ordinary person would choose to break through. However, divine spiritual cultivators crushed the spiritual seed and spread the spiritual energy to their internal organs. From there, they would plant the spiritual seed in their internal organs. An ordinary person only had one spiritual seed. According to the cultivation method of a divine spiritual cultivator, one person could condense 12 spiritual seeds. Their spiritual energy was 12 times that of an ordinary person. 1 in the mind, 5 in the internal organs, and 6 in the internal organs. However, this was a very big risk. The moment the spiritual seed in the mind was crushed, if one did not control it well, their spiritual energy would die. This also meant that their consciousness would disappear, and they would become a walking corpse. And at that moment, Jiangchen was doing the most important step, crushing his spirit seed. I've already come this far. No matter how dangerous it is, I have to continue, Jiangchen said softly. With a single thought, the spiritual seed in his mind shattered with a loud bang. In that instant, Jiangchen was a little confused. He felt as if he had turned into thousands of people and his thoughts were in a mess. In that instant, Jiangchen even forgot who he was and did not know what he was doing. Fortunately, Jiangchen had experienced 2 lifetimes and his soul was extremely strong. After a moment of absent-mindedness and confusion, he came back to his senses. Form! At this moment, Jiangchen formed a seal with both hands and divided his spiritual energy. A wisp was left in his mind while the rest of his spiritual energy rushed into his internal organs. It took Jiangchen 3 days to plant the seed of spirit in his internal organs with the help of the practice method of the Holy Spirit. In the instant that the 12 spiritual seeds were formed, Jiangchen could clearly feel his spiritual energy increase by a great deal. This feeling is really good, Jiangchen said softly. With a thought, a talisman was formed. After that, Jiangchen's thoughts turned and a boundary was formed. Before, Jiangchen had needed to coordinate with hand seals, but now, all of this could be done with a single thought. Next is the origin realm, Jiangchen said softly. He'd long since thought of what method to cultivate in the origin realm. The origin realm was to return to one's original state and merge everything in one's body together. Return to one's original state. Return to one's original state. This was a realm that established one's foundation. Like a foundation, it patched up the previous 3 realms to perfection. This was the final realm of the martial Tao, the origin realm. The origin armor technique, this method should be the strongest in the origin realm, Jiangchen murmured softly. When he thought of the creator of the origin armor technique, a trace of a smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. The origin armor technique had been created by a divine turtle in the 9 heavens. However, this divine turtle had once been an enemy of Jiangchen, and had been slain by Jiangchen in the end. He'd even boiled a mouthful of nourishing soup from it. Chapter 78. That old turtle's foundation is truly solid. It took me 3 days and 3 nights to kill him back then, Jiangchen thought to himself as he recalled the time when he fought the divine turtle. It had been an incomparable headache. After Jiangchen had defeated the divine turtle, he'd forcefully bombarded it for 3 days and 3 nights before finally killing it completely. The reason why it was so difficult to kill the divine turtle was because its foundation was too solid. It was said that the divine turtle had cultivated for over 300 years when it was in the origin realm. From this, one could imagine just how solid the divine turtle's foundation was. At this moment, Jiangchen first studied the origin armor technique before starting to cultivate. To Jiangchen, there was no difficulty in cultivating any cultivation method or martial technique in the world. He could understand it after looking at it once, and master it after looking at it twice. The origin armor technique paved and polished one's foundation until it was like a tortoise shell. It was continuous without a single crack or flaw. To put it simply, it was to merge all 4 realms of martial Tao into one. The spirit realm unlocks the spirit meridians, the body realm condenses the essence blood, the mind realm refines the spirit, and the origin realm merges the first 3. It's like, stewing it all in one pot like a big boiler. And it has to be stewed slowly. That was how Jiangchen understood the origin armor technique. Time slowly flowed by in the midst of cultivation. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 3 days, Jiangchen focused on cultivation and had already broken through to the lower level of the origin realm. He'd even completed the repair of the spirit realm. On this day, Mo Xingtian's voice suddenly traveled over. This was through the method of a contract, transmitting from 1,000 miles away. Master! Star Sword Sect! Save me! When he heard this voice, Jiangchen's expression froze and he hurriedly asked, but Mo Xingtian didn't respond. Jiangchen could feel that Mo Xingtian was still alive. Then, there was only one possibility. Mo Xingtian had been imprisoned and had lost consciousness. He'd most likely fainted. Captured by the Star Sword Sect? Jiangchen frowned, thinking that with Mo Xingtian's strength, the Star Sword Sect shouldn't be able to do anything to him, right? After all, the strongest person in the Star Sword sect had died at the setting sun divine miracle. Now, the new sect leader was even weaker than Mo Xingtian. In that case, there must be something fishy going on. Star Sword sect, I haven't even looked for you, but you've already made your move. Jiang Chen's voice was slightly cold. He suddenly stood up and walked outside. Along the way, samurai masters and alchemists came over to greet and salute. Jiang Chen did not say much. After nodding his head, he rode on the spirit horse and rushed towards the Star Sword sect. He didn't call Jiang Lu or Baifeng Yu. After breaking through to the origin realm, Jiang Chen felt that he alone was enough to flatten the Star Sword sect. Boom! However, not long after they left the Qianzun sect, an explosion rang out in front of them. Following that, the surrounding ground cracked open. Rays of brilliance appeared, densely packed with array runes. A formation rose up. Seeing this, Jiang Chen's eyes flashed coldly. He walked down from the spirit horse and looked around. Finally, his gaze locked onto a patch of black soil. You've been waiting for me here for a long time, haven't you? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. Setting up a formation and trapping me here, how confident are you that you can kill me? Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, the patch of black soil exploded. A man in black appeared in front of Jiang Chen. Your life belongs to the secret pavilion. Today, you will die without a doubt, the man said coldly. Killing intent surged from his body. With a flip of his hand, a scroll unfurled. Buzz! In that instant, the space shook. When the scroll unfurled, the insects, birds, and beasts inside seemed to come alive and pounced out from the scroll. There were scorpions the size of elephants, giant snakes with 3 heads, and some other strange beasts. A painter? Jiang Chen was surprised. This scroll was not ordinary. It was drawn by a painter. Like pill refiners and formation masters, painters were also a special profession. Painters use spirit energy as a medium to draw all kinds of living beings, even mountains, rivers, and the Tao. Anything created by painters could be used in battle. There was once a painter who drew a galaxy that suppressed a generation of powerful enemies. There was also a painter who drew a temple that manifested for 1,000 years and was worshipped by the people of the world. And now, the scroll Jiang Chen encountered was drawn by a painter. Kid, you should feel honored to die in the hands of a painter, the man sneered. Spirit energy spat out from his fingertips as he drew in front of him. A gigantic white tiger appeared. With a tiger's roar, the fierce beasts all around dashed towards Jiang Chen. There was no end to them. I'm just a painter, Jiang Chen chuckled. Although I don't draw well, I can still draw a few strokes. Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Chen's 10 fingers danced and drew a pattern in front of him. Moving his 10 fingers together, Jiang Chen drew a picture of a Kylin in front of him in only 3 breaths. Roar! In the next moment, the Qilin pattern exploded with light. Then, a blood-colored Qilin appeared out of thin air. With a roar, the Qilin rushed out. The aura of a king filled the air and a mouthful of flames was spat out from its mouth. Wherever the flames passed, it seemed to burn everything. The charging beasts disappeared in the flames, turning into wisps of spirit energy that dissipated into the world. At the same time, Jiang Chen rushed out. Black and white light flickered on his body. In his hands, 1 black and 1 white true Qi sword condensed. This was the heavenly dance of brightness and darkness. Prison drawing ground! Seeing this, the man shouted and slid his fingertips in front of him. A square cage appeared and covered Jiang Chen with a loud bang. What can you do to me? Jiang Chen slashed out with his black and white sword radiance. Finally, with 1 slash, the cage was cut open. Then, Jiang Chen's figure moved horizontally, leaving behind afterimages on the way. The black and white sword radiance danced and confused the surroundings. The sword shadows were like a fierce wind, wantonly rising. 9-layered cage! 8-sided iron chain! The man looked serious. He couldn't see Jiang Chen's figure clearly, so he could only draw continuously. 9 cages appeared out of thin air and landed around him. It was like a 9-paneled grid, protecting him. Then, the 8 chains converged and connected the 9 cages together. Rumble! In an instant, the chains danced and pulled the 9 cages in a spiral. A strong wind erupted and swept the surroundings, scattering the afterimages left behind by Jiang Chen. However, at this moment, the man still couldn't see where Jiang Chen's true body was. The assassins of the secret pavilion are good at assassination. But do you know what I'm good at? At that moment, Jiang Chen's voice suddenly rang in the man's ears. The man was shocked. He moved horizontally and turned his head to look to the side. However, when he turned his head, he realized that he couldn't move his body. At that moment, the man looked down and saw the black and white sword in Jiang Chen's hand sever his cervical vertebra. Because this sword was too sharp, because all of this happened too suddenly, and because of this. When the man was beheaded, he didn't realize that he had already died a second ago. Chapter 79. Hidden Pavilion, I'll destroy you sooner or later. Jiang Chen's face was gloomy. It had only been a few months since his rebirth, and he had already been assassinated by Hidden Pavilion's assassins several times. Jiang Chen wasn't angry, but he was flustered. Following that, Jiang Chen undid the surrounding array formation, sat on the spirit horse, and continued forward. At the same time, an alchemist suddenly appeared in Qingyun town. He was very generous and was wantonly recruiting with pills as the price. In just a few days, this person had recruited more than a dozen Dao realm cultivators. One of them even reached the peak of the Dao realm. And this person was Tong Seng, who had been disguised by Jiang Chen. On the other side, Lu Shan led a group of array masters and surrounded Black Cloud Inn, secretly setting up an array formation. They were also in disguise. When they met Tong Seng, they couldn't even recognize each other. What? Boss went out alone. Where did Master go? At this moment, in Xuanzuan's sect, Bai Fengyu and Jiang Lu panicked when they learned that Jiang Chen had left. They knew that if there were no special circumstances, Jiang Chen wouldn't have left Xuanzuan's sect. Quickly send someone to find out, Bai Fengyu said anxiously. The outside world is so dangerous. If anything happens to Master, what should I do? Don't talk about you, what should we do? That's right, we came to Xuanzuan's sect because of Master. At this moment, everyone in Xuanzuan's sect panicked. Previously, some people saw Jiang Chen leave but didn't think too much about it. Now that they heard Bai Fengyu's words, all of them panicked. Men! Gather all the consecrators and guests of the Pill Pavilion and find Master for me. Call all the consecrators of my array pavilion and spread them out. If they can't find Master, don't be a consecrator of my array pavilion in the future. At this moment, the heads of the Pill Pavilion and Array Pavilion spoke. They were more anxious than anyone else. They weren't fools. They knew that Jiang Chen still had many alchemy techniques, pill formulas, and array diagrams. If anything happened to Jiang Chen, where would they find these things? On this day, there was a storm in the area of Qingyun town. In a single day, there were no less than 60 people entering and leaving Xuanzuan's sect. Moreover, most of them were cultivators above the origin realm, and there was no lack of Dao realm cultivators among them. These were all guest elders and reverends of the Pill Pavilion and Formation Pavilion. Found it! Someone saw Master heading in the direction of Star Sword sect. What? Go to Star Sword sect? Are you courting death? Not long after, the news spread to the Xuanzuan sect, causing a group of people to have a headache and worry. Everyone knew that there was enmity between Jiang Chen and the Star Sword sect. Now that Jiang Chen had suddenly headed to the Star Sword sect, it was definitely not a good thing. Come quickly! I'll go over first, Bai Fengyu said, and immediately soared into the sky and flew towards Star Sword sect. Before long, a large group of Dao realm cultivators from the Xuanzuan sect flew up into the air toward the Star Sword sect. Jiang Liu's face was full of sweat. He was so embarrassed that he wanted to die. He had yet to enter the Tao realm, and there was no one to bring him flying. He could only ride a spirit horse and chase after them. However, even the spirit horse could not stand his weight. The spirit horse's speed was much slower with him on its back, at this moment, outside the mountain gate of Star Sword Sect. Jiangchen had just arrived when he saw that outside the mountain gate of Star Sword Sect, it was already filled with people. Among them, there was no lack of Tao realm cultivators. Buzz! In the next second, without waiting for Jiangchen to speak, an invisible ripple spread out. This was a mental attack that went straight for Jiangchen's mind. However, although Jiangchen sensed it, he did not care at all. That was because he possessed 12 spirit seeds and his mental strength was far from what ordinary people could compare to. How could a mere mental attack do anything to him? 2 choices. 1. Release Mo Xingtian and I'll destroy Star Sword Sect. 2. You guys kill Mo Xingtian and I'll destroy Star Sword Sect. Jiang Chen's voice was cold as he stared at the group of people in front of him. Especially when he saw Lin Mo and the other 2, the coldness in his eyes skyrocketed. Jiang Chen had already let these 3 people off several times. However, every time something happened to Jiang Chen, these 3 people would stand against him. Jiang Chen had never been merciful. It was just that Chu Yuan had helped him back then. At that time, Jiang Chen had said, "Good people will be rewarded." However, until now, Jiang Chen had already let them off several times. The so-called good people would be rewarded had already been rewarded. If he were to repay them again, it would not be good karma. "Jiang Chen, hurry up and leave. You'll die here." Chu Yuan looked at Jiang Chen with an ashamed expression. He was a member of Star Sword Sect but did not want to become enemies with Jiang Chen. However, he was only a disciple and did not have any authority to stop all of this. "Just because of what you said, I'll let you go later," Jiang Chen said softly. Then, he looked at the rest and asked, "I'll ask you one last time. Will you choose 1 or 2? You're asking us to choose? Ha ha ha, we don't need to choose anything today. We only need to choose how to take your life." Star Sword Sect's deputy sect leader laughed maniacally. "You dare to come to my Star Sword Sect alone? Are you seeking death? Goodbye." Hearing this, Jiang Chen did not say anything else. After saying, "goodbye," his mind moved and a lightning talisman instantly formed. However, Star Sword Sect was already on guard. The moment the lightning talisman formed, a sharp arrow with a green glow pierced through the air. Boom! With a loud explosion, the talisman shattered. Moreover, the sharp arrow did not slow down and headed straight for Jiang Chen's face. "All of you must die!" Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. True Qi exploded around him and turned into runes. Then, a barrier was formed. The barrier was like a cage, spinning in front of him and blocking the sharp sword. Following this, the barrier rose into the sky and enveloped everyone present like a heavenly curtain. Knowing talismans and barriers, how good would it be if you were a disciple of my Star Sword Sect? It's a pity that after today, you'll be a pile of yellow soil, a pile of bones. Kill! At this moment, the group of people from Star Sword Sect roared and rushed towards Jiang Chen. Before they arrived, the attacks that filled the sky came crashing down like a storm. Heavenly dance of light and darkness. Jiang Chen was fearless. Black and white light flickered on his body as he used the 9 words of battle. Travel like the wind, speed. Sweep like fire, fierce attack. Defend like a mountain, defense. Wearing armor formed by true Qi, he held the black and white shoulder blades. When his eyes opened and closed, there was a flash of silver light. That was the forbidden technique. Might of the Galaxy. Roar! Accompanied by a dragon's roar, a silver dragon condensed from starlight appeared behind him. Then, like a silver stream of light, it charged out. Wherever the silver dragon passed, the attacks that fell were all shattered and turned into nothingness. Then, the silver dragon charged and crashed into the crowd. A flash of silver light appeared, accompanied by a roar. A large group of people were sent flying, and a few people even exploded on the spot. Only those with the highest cultivation were able to block it. but their bodies were trembling. They were not lightly shaken. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.